Will be no real non-controlled currency in the world.
We're coming for you, banks.
Increasing the block size to 32 megabytes right now. What would be the top 5 arguments that would get hurled against me?
Oh, that's a good one.
There are a few that the big blockers got right.
Ching, like all these coins splash into the wallets of all the winners. I love that.
There's a new threat out there. It's crypto.
Hello and welcome back to the Bitcoin Cash podcast, following Bitcoin Cash on its rise to global reserve currency. This is certainly one of those episodes where it feels like we're in the thick of it. We're being tested. This is episode number 111, Hijacking Bitcoin and RBTC Chaos, featuring Emergent Reasons and CheapLightning. Today is Sunday, the 24th of March, 2024. I'm your host, Jeremy. Jet is doing the producing, and this has been quite a chaotic few days for the BCH community. Had loads of people asking what's going on, how do I get updated, blah, blah, blah. So we're going to really try and cover everything as much as we can in this episode. But to start with, our regular guests, you love them, that I think the perfect people to chat with on this fine occasion. Starting with you, Emergent, how are you doing and what's the latest with you in BCH?
I'm doing all right, actually. Yeah, so with BCH Bull, obviously the thing that I work on every day and that's always on my mind, but we were working with Bitcoin Cash Altus recently to look at the volume and seeing it get up to 24,000 BCH. And I was just double checking with their data that they have and how it gets up on the DeFi Llama and so forth. And yeah, it's just fantastic to see it. And that's what my mind is on every day. Of course, recently this RBTC
situation
issue, but yeah, everything's pretty good for me.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot in the community. You know, a lot of people have been using it, talking about BCH Bull and stuff. So I've been, it's really, even just from my perspective outside of all of it, I can sort of see like it's picking up traction and people are organically chatting about it. And like in the price channel on Telegram, people are often saying like, oh, my hedge or my long and all that. So yeah, it seems to be getting really good.
A guy named Rebudante has like made bots for it, and other people have made data presentations for it. Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, organic community traction. CheapLightning, how you been doing? What's the latest with you in the BCH scene?
Meow. There's so much going on. As usual, it's hard to stay on top of it all. Obviously, this recent drama has made my life a little bit more eventful as a various community moderator. Previously to that, however, though, I've just been bogged down with BCHF stuff. I've been going through a list of more than 300 industry contacts, just trying to let them know that BCH is upgrading in May, and if they have any BCH infra, especially a node, that they should be sure to.
There's Abla, you can stay in consensus with Abla without having implemented it until we have a block bigger than 32 megabytes, right? So if people don't upgrade, will it still kick them off the network? Do you guys know?
I'm not 100% sure what'll happen. I believe
it'll just depend on whether somebody decides to do some kind of stress test, and you'd have to do a stress test that maxes it out for a while until it goes over 32 megabytes. So it would take a serious concerted effort to do it. Yeah. Otherwise, yeah, you could gamble.
But
your nodes, like, all I'm saying is it's not like because there's the block that it kicks in, right? It's like if you're on an outdated node, you're not instantly going to be like, oh, I'm missing the right, I don't know, hash or something, right? Like
right.
You'll still be on the network.
It's a gamble.
Provided there's no 32.1 megabyte. Okay, all right. But anyway, we're not probably going to get immediately a 32.1 megabyte block or something, so that's fine. But yeah, it's still good. glad to hear you've been putting in some behind the scenes work there. That's great, and that's just, that doesn't get done unless somebody takes time out of their schedule to actually do it, and it's so important to a decentralized grassroots kind of thing. Okay, we got to quickly check in on the price. BCH gaining on the ratio despite the drama, or in fact maybe because of it, and we can talk about that. BCH has actually been going up this week. $454.69 USD will buy you 100 megasats. So we're up there. One BTC sat is on the decline and only buys 143.3 BCH sats. And one Ethereum will buy just 743 megasats. So also BCH outperforming there. The halving is in 11 days on April 4, and it's 51 days until Bliss, which I'm super excited for. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on this. I sort of personally feel like maybe some positive price action is not directly related to this drama, but I think indirectly it kind of plays into it that as the community passes over, another set of series of struggles and challenges, just the positive momentum continues, right? I think if there was a big grief that got on the radar of anyone outside of the hardcore BCH community, then that's when you get a bit of a sell-off, but that didn't happen, so momentum's continuing. Any thoughts on that?
Nah, drama creates interest, which is, who knows what impact that has, but I assume it increases the potential that people would buy it, because the people that would check into it who don't know it already, it's not like maybe they have BCH to sell. So.
Yeah. But we are doing well, right?
I think the ETF rumor is probably a far more driving force than any subreddit drama. People don't care what's going on in the community. If mainstream news anywhere has published some kind of hint that this ETF is actually a thing, and the Coinbase documents, they're actual filings, right, of the futures market, right? So I think that's probably a much stronger driving force than Reddit.
Yeah, you're right. I'd forgotten. If this was another week, that's what we would be doing. Show on the weekly news. Coinbase maybe going to file a BCH ETF, but we don't have time for that. 3TH4N6692 says, "I'm here, sir, to ask if what is going to happen during the BCH halving. Is it going to high or low?" Emergent Reasons responded yes, which I think is basically the right answer. Like, the theory is that it should go up because the supply will reduce. But on the other hand, that's known in advance. So people might buy the rumor and sell the news. Could be either way, really. We'll just, remains to be seen. Maybe this is the rise. We're having the rise now in anticipation of the halving. Could be.
I think if anything can be said is that the changes of hash rate that will happen due to the halving on BTC and then BCH might create some perturbations, some volatility, some short-term volatility, but it's no kind of fundamental thing, right? This has been known like 10 years ago that it would happen around this time, so it's not like it's news.
Also, I saw some people kind of panicking a little bit about, what is because our halving is desynced with BTC. Is there going to be problems with the miners or anything? It's like, no. Like, luckily, that's why BCH already in its history has already been through these problems. It already updated the difficulty adjustment algorithm. It will adapt. There's plenty of space in the blocks. BCH is not going to be disrupted. BTC is not going to be disrupted because it's the bigger sort of gorilla in the room. But if the situation was reversed, they might be in shit. But it's luckily not for them. So okay as the small one, and either side would be okay as the big one, basically. It's how it goes. All right. So that's a bit of a lead in. It is nice that we're getting some nice price pumps at 17 and actually starting to accelerate ahead of the couple of the coins we were hanging around with before, because the context, before we get into the drama, I think it's very important, is that the BCH community is really winning. Like recently, over this last year, we just have been crushing it. There's been more and more interest in BCH in the general crypto scene. We're seeing more and more admissions, like we already had in the intro, from last year, a lot of capitulating on fake narratives in the BTC side. Well, that is continuing. This week, we had an Argentinian Argentinian YouTuber come out with a video to his 1 million subscribers explaining in Spanish that basically BCH is the real Bitcoin and all the sort of BCH stuff, like this huge video to loads of the Spanish community. And it wasn't just like, oh, BCH is cool or it's a different, it was like, no, we've been scammed. BTC is wrong. BCH is the real Bitcoin. And we have a clip as well too that a few days ago was very prominently circulated throughout Bitcoin Twitter, by which I mean all of it, not even just in the BCH scene, with John Carvalho capitulating on Lightning Network. So let's just have a listen to what he had to say on the Bitcoin Takeover podcast.
The degree of complexity and fragility of Lightning, and especially for the use case that people intend for it, which is like end users running their own nodes, and even more crazy end users running their own routing nodes. It's just very, very fragile. And going through that experience just made me realize that the design is kind of a joke. Like, we can make it work. We can do our best, but like all of the kind of narratives that came with it in the first couple of years were really exaggerated. Like things like Lightning is going to kill Visa and everybody will be using Lightning. And there are a lot of issues with scaling it economically. There are a lot of issues with dealing with all of the multiple implementations and incompatibilities. And again, the fragilities causing force closes, liquidity management, and it just like goes on and on and on. And all of the things that like people that aren't engineers and aren't building these products, like even if they feel like they fully appreciate the complexity because they like study it a lot, they still don't get it. Like it's just so much worse than people think to actually make this stuff and string it together.
All right, so there you have it. Of course, none of this is really news to anybody that has listened to the Bitcoin Cash podcast ever, because since the first day of the show, since fucking 2015, this has all been very clear and obvious to the BCH community. And honestly, at this point, it's, I mean, I don't even really feel very vindicated in like dunking on him or anything. It's like, this has all been known since forever, but we're just at such a point of narrative collapse that they're starting to like just totally admit it. We've already got the big blockers were kind of right. Now it's like they were totally right. I don't know at what point we're going to get, guys, we need to switch to BCH. That seems to be, I mean, maybe they come up with some new nonsense to distract things. But how are you feeling about any of this, guys?
Yeah, I put up the surprise Pikachu. That's about all there is to it, right? Like, oh my God, who could have ever predicted this, right? But you get to a point where it's like you said, you stop dunking and it's like, okay, you kind of start to feel bad for them because it's like they're actually going through some hard mental space right now, like guys like John are. So, but it's good. You got to go through that because they've been living on nonsense for a very long time, for years, like, right? For 6-7 years, maybe more than that. So yeah, it's gonna be some pain for them. And who knows what mental gymnastics will come out of it, or some people who just, swallow the hard pill and realize what really happened. Who knows what will happen, but yeah, it's over there now. Luckily, we've moved way beyond all that, right? The block size is just the very minimal earliest thing that happened with BCH. We've moved so far beyond that now. So yeah, don't want to wish ill on anybody, but it's hard not to say I told you so really, really loud.
CheapLightning.
I find it so amazing that the timing, right? So SV collapses the same time that all of these people in BTC also sort of like have their awakening that we can't scale this thing as it is with the people in charge who are. it's, just the timing is just so I don't know, serendipitous. What's the right word? Just amazing. It's not like they're at all different moments in time. It's right now, right? Why is it right now when it all falls apart? I guess that is a coincidence. But my metric for Mr. Carvalho finally seeing the light, of course, is when he unblocks me on Twitter, because he blocked me right at the Bcash moment. And so if he decides that, oh wait, the Bcashers who told me that Lightning is not the future were right, maybe blocking them was a bit presumptuous as well.
Nah, they're gonna go through all kinds of gymnastics.
Yeah, there's still
Guys are doing. They
there's going to be another excuse.
Yeah.
I mean, for him specifically, not all of them, of course not, but
yeah.
he'll have fully committed when he starts unblocking all of the people who he blocked in 2017 or 2018 who were just telling him the truth at the time, right? It's like,
nah, it's just a huge blind spot that's going to continue for a long time at least.
Dig his way out of that hole. There's no way. And just like that's the thing is even in this clip, and I think in some of the other stuff around it, he still kind of is like, it's the same with the BSV guys and Craig is not Satoshi. They still want to find a way to hang on to it. He still kind of says in some of the rest of it, like maybe for business to business, it would be kind of good. I've heard him talking about that. And like, rather than just, you have to get to the point where you just say, I was wrong. Tons of people told me they were fucking right. I'm going to start listening to them or see what they have to say about it. Like, that's just a world apart from like, goddamn guys, we're in this huge mess. Again, this sort of, who could have known? Like, oh, we just found this out. Like, as long as you're still playing that story to yourself, like, we had to go down this rabbit hole and then we just discovered it was hard at the end. As long as you're still telling yourself that story, rather than like, no, people knew and I've been deluded for the last 9 years, you're still quite a way away from, let alone the words Bcashers were right. Where's he talks in this same interview as well. If you watch the full thing, he talks about trolling Roger, and he says, look, I wanted to do an interview with Roger, but he said, like, no, you're going to have to apologize and say sorry and say I was wrong for me to even consider this. And then he says, but I did apologize, and whatever, obviously half shitty apology he gave, Roger was like, that's not it. So he's still, and then he says, oh, but I'm not going to apologize for calling him out as a Bcasher. And like, it's like, anyway,
whatever.
All this is to say, yeah, exactly. Like, there's not much more to say about it, but the reason I wanted to bring it up is because BCH is winning, and this is like the ramifications. This is like the knock-on effects, all this stuff that we're talking about on Twitter, all the like debates that are going on, the sort of cultural zeitgeist. Like, BCH has just started like pushing through the ceiling of, censorship, and we can ignore them, right? And that's starting to have knock-on effects, as even if people can't address it directly, except on this show, right? But anywhere else, everybody else still has to tiptoe around it. And so but it's on their peripheral vision, right? And as it's coming up more and more and more, it's causing chaos in sort of the BSV scene with their whole collapse and stuff like that. And also the same here in BTC, right? Because we're now focused on doing our thing and we're winning, and everybody else is starting to take notice, and it's causing everybody else to exist in this state of like, how could this be, right?
Yeah, well, there's an old quote, I forget exactly what it is, but basically the best revenge is success, something like that. It's like, okay, yeah, we've moved on. You don't even register that much anymore. Let's just keep going.
Yeah. Okay. So another sort of element to this whole narrative collapse has been Roger Ver has announced, again, just this week or so, his new book, which is called Hijacking Bitcoin, the hidden history of BTC, which he wrote with Steve Patterson. And so it's in pre-release now. Nobody has a copy of it, but you can pre-order it. It will be available April the 4th. I'm really looking forward to reading it. I've already pre-ordered my copy on Bitgree, so I recommend everyone go on Bitgree and pre-order a copy paying in BCH. Roger has said about it that people said, oh, from the title, like, is this just going to be a big sort of bashing BTC type of thing? And he's already sort of confirmed and said, no, it does sort of, there is stuff about BCH in there and about how that could be the solution and all that. So it does have some kind of positive slant to it. Of course, he also has his other book, Taking Back Bitcoin, which has not, come on the radar yet, but that must also be somewhere in the pipeline. Now, when he announced this book, the salt from the laser eyes just went off the charts instantly, because now the BCH challenge to the narrative is on the rise, similar to what we were just talking about. This is another sort of strand of it. For so many years, it's just been, the block size war, that book by Jonathan Beer, like, that's just, why don't you read that? Why don't you read that? That explains everything. And the BCH community just had not produced an alternative with sort of the real, or not the real version of events, because the block size war is not exactly wrong, but with an alternative perspective of what happened, right? And this looks like it's going to be it. So before it's even out, there's already been so much complaining and whining about it from people that don't even know what it says, right? But that just goes to show that I feel like the BCH story is actually kind of starting to shine through on multiple fronts, right? But I don't know. Have you guys pre-ordered a copy? What's your take on this book?
Yeah, I'm ready to read it. I obviously I was the first person to reply in the Twitter group where Roger or somebody posted the book, and I'm definitely on a let's wait and see what it says, just because of Roger's long disengagement. That I'm just not sure what he's going to say. It'll be interesting to see, no matter what, for sure, though.
I have not ordered a copy. I probably will eventually, or at least get my hands on a copy. I'll borrow it from John when he's done with it. I don't know. But yeah, I think, this is a two book series. The Hijacking Bitcoin part, I think I have probably the most hope for. He certainly has a lot of inside perspective of what happened, not only in public, but behind the scenes as well, right? So there's, the hash war and Bitcoin.com had hash, and, all of these sorts of things that perhaps are not public, and which adds an extra dimension that I'm certainly curious about. He's probably one of the world's, if not the world's most knowledgeable person about what actually happened at that period. So I think it probably will be excellent historical record of what transpired at that time. I don't know what percentage of the book was him actually writing versus Steve Patterson's writing. I don't know how the division of duties went there, but anyway, Roger certainly would be able to say that something was or was not true at that time. And it will be excellent to have a point of view out there that is not covered by all of these other block size war books or whatever. There is certainly another side of the story there. So I reserve judgment until I've read it, but I'm certainly curious what it says.
Yeah, I mean, the impression I've seen a little bit of him talking about it, and also with Steve Patterson talking about it. The impression I get is that it's sort of, like you say, it was probably more actually really Steve Patterson has written this book, and then Roger read over it and has been involved and consulted with him about it, and then but he's sort of being branded more as like, it's my book, because like you say, he's the one who can add so much credibility to it. And so, of course, yeah, he said like he can stand behind everything in the book, but I think Steve probably did most of the writing. And I honestly think it's fine, because I don't know that Roger would have had time to do, like, if it all had to be him, maybe this just never would have gotten done in the first place. So I'm very bullish on this book, just because I think it's also changing the narrative quite significantly, and the fact that there's been such a huge reaction to it, even before it's been released, just goes to show how fragile the sort of BTC narrative is at this moment in time. Are you guys getting any sense of that? You know, that like we're starting to to break through?
I just expect it to get completely review bombed, right? Somehow. I mean, just because we've experienced that in the past, right? DDoS, mass censorship on our Bitcoin back in the day. Just we've been through the reality of what happens when you piss off whoever that is. So yeah, I expect some kind of backlash, but you know, at the same time, there's a million times more people who have nothing to do with Bitcoin and might read this and not really start with that bias. So I think the overall impact, assuming the content of the book is accurate, is going to be big on the overall perception of what really happened.
But that's all just Streisand effect, right? Even if people are upset, people are down voting it and stuff. The point is that this is a credible, well-researched, like a solid bit of proof of work from the BCH community, that before that, because there is no book like this. People have talked about, oh, maybe we should do something like Ragequit, or like, could you write something that refutes all this, blah, blah, blah. So that when people say, have you read the block size war? You say, yes. And have you read Hijacking Bitcoin? Like, that's going to be, you know, so powerful, I think. But anyway, the whole point is this is just already the background, the lead into what has then gone down in RBDC. And one final point to mention is that, like you say, the censorship and stuff already started. I think Roger posted on our cryptocurrency about, you know, my book's already #1 on Amazon in pre-release and stuff, and that got deleted and taken down. So once again, every effort will be made to just try and suppress and, you know, control the narrative. That's just kind of par for the course. So we should expect that. But I'm really looking forward to reading this, especially to see what's in this versus Taking Back Bitcoin. Like, it seems pretty good to me that we're getting 2 books. But yeah, I highly recommend everyone to go on BitGree and pre-order a copy. Right. Now, I also want to give one quick statement on impartiality. So this is going to be a sort of controversial episode, or there's going to be, you know, takes on this, especially because the topic is censorship. So any opinion I have will be suspect, and the same for you guys, to accusations of you're censoring the opposition or you're only presenting one side. That's going to be the first thing that some people will reach for. So I want to be very clear about this. I talked to David Shares, who is on the other, in quotation marks, side of this issue, and said, do you want to come on the show and talk about this with us? And he said to me, thanks for the invite, but I don't really want to do a podcast, or, you know, that's not a medium that I'm, I don't know, comfortable with or interested in or what have you. So I said, okay, who else do you think I could have then? Could you recommend, you know, someone that you think would be credible to speak for sort of your side of the issue or point of view? And he said, why don't you get Roger? So I also spoke to Roger. I said, do you want to come on the show? I explained we were going to be, you know, dissecting this issue and so forth. And he said he would like consider coming on to talk about the book and everything. But in terms of the rest of this topic, he said, I don't want to be involved in creating sort of drama or, you know, any discussions around that. But he did say that Al Thornton, who we'll get into, he has sort of vetted himself and known for at least a decade, and knew that he wasn't hacked or otherwise, you know, sabotaged in some way. And he thought that unbanning George was defanging his complaints, that he can't really whinge about being censored if he's unbanned. That was kind of his point of view. Right. So then I finally also made a third effort to message Al Thornton themselves and say, do you want to come on the show? Because you're part of this issue, right? So I didn't get any response there either. So I feel that I have made 3 very solid efforts to try and present a balanced view, or to give the opportunity for anybody who wanted to have a different version of events to come on the show. So, but they weren't interested in doing it. So I feel in that sense, I've discharged my duty to be fair and impartial. And obviously I will also, try and keep things as factual as possible. So that's that. And for anybody who doesn't appreciate that, or says that's still not enough and like it's still just biased and whatever, then my secondary response is, well, this is my show, so fuck off. If you want your own show, your own version of events, host your own Twitter space, have your own YouTube channel, put up your own proof of work, and create your own media platform, and you can say whatever your version of events is there. But I've done the best I can to be impartial, and this is the version of events you're getting. So there you go. Any quick thoughts on that before we move on?
Yeah, I do. I think it's fair to say anybody who knows our history of discussions, and like, for example, with Flipstarter, which was super contentious, right? Way more contentious than this is right now, and way more at stake, and so forth. I was extremely careful to be impartial and clear when I had my opinion, and then I had my responsibilities and so forth, and that those things are different, conflicts of interest and so on. So my conscience is fully clear, and I think anybody who looks into the history of anything that I've done with talking about controversial topics, I've always done my best to be impartial about it, including saying my opinion, but also being impartial about it. So yeah, I don't have any qualms about that at all.
CheapLightning, any statement on this?
I think you reached out to the most relevant people. Obviously, the center of this hurricane is George to some degree. However, that's not actually the drama. It's what happened with the subreddits and the actions by the moderators. So wow.
Oh, sorry.
No, after you.
No.
Too late. Nope. I relinquished command.
Didn't you also talk to Bitcoin is the future?
No, I didn't.
You also invite that account.
I considered it. Like I just, in everything that happened, I didn't quite get around to it. So sorry if they want to come on the show, then they can message me and maybe we can do it separately. So.
Yeah, that's what is actually the next thing I was going to say is after reading their Reddit post about their perspective of this whole thing, I'm quite sympathetic to their stance, and so I think they probably would have had a good perspective as someone who was actionably on the other side, but not necessarily philosophically. I don't know, but
I'm sympathetic to the feelings that they had, but not sympathetic to the response that they had to it.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, without jumping into it too much, it seems like there was a lot of reactions really quickly from both sides who from Bitcoin the Future, I'm sorry if I brutalized your name, was certainly knee-jerk, and to some degree I think Tom and Shadow were also somewhat knee-jerk reactions, but yeah, let's go on.
Yes. Okay. So, anyway, that all just is to say, and I'm happy to discuss again if David or Roger or anybody else who's credibly involved, with one exception, is interested in coming on this show, then we can arrange that and also do that. I really don't want to be, I'm very conscious that this is a big platform relative to the issue, and so I don't want to be seen as cutting off. And obviously I have my own view and point on it, so I just want to be careful about that. Okay, so who is that one exception? That one exception is George Donnelly, and we got to do a slide about this because it just needs to be said. So who is George Donnelly? Because some listeners to the show have no idea who this is or what's going on. Right, so he was on the show on the Bitcoin Cash podcast on episode 18. If you want to hear from him, obviously it's quite outdated by this point. You can go and listen to sort of what he had to say at that time, and he's out there as well with his own platform and content. So if you're interested in his point of view, you can go and find it. Now, I have not mentioned him on this show or brought him up in a variety of situations because I thought, look, it's best to just not, create drama and stir up the pot and add Streisand effect. But he's so consistently causing grief that apparently it's come to this point that he's just going to get roasted on the show, and he deserves it. Let's put it that way. So he has this cycle of behavior where he's been in various other cryptocurrencies. He worked in Dash for a while, and now he's in BCH, and I think he's also pokes around in other ecosystems a little bit. But he's this guy who's a very passionate cryptocurrency advocate and libertarian and stuff, and hats off to him for that, because I agree with him on that. But what he does is he does some good sounding kind of work in the community, especially around promotion and advertising and, building up network effect seemingly for a cryptocurrency. So he did this with Dash. He's done it in BCH in various iterations. And that looks good at the surface, right? Okay. He's got some cool looking websites. He's got some good information. He's got whatever, right? This builds up a little bit of credibility in the scene, right? Especially with new people who are unfamiliar with him, or they know his work or whatever, and they see it and they say, wow, this guy's doing, really good work. It's not, deep in the node code or something like that nobody would see. It's deliberately a quite visible way of signaling, I'm doing good work, guys. Once he's got a little bit of attention from that, he starts some kind of drama, and it varies, time to time what it is, but he causes some kind of grief to get attention on himself. The community has to deal with this, and he stirs the pot and whatever until people get sick of it enough that he either gets banned from the channels for just being disruptive, or he gets called out like he is going to be here. So in doing this, I guarantee you that he's going to make a big whinge about this, right? And he's going to say, look, I'm being persecuted, I'm being censored, I'm being targeted, right? And then anybody who says, look, mate, you kind of brought this on yourself, then he starts sea lioning. He says, where's the evidence? What have I done wrong? Prove it to me. And all of this is in service of generating further drama as people have to debate and discuss this with him, but also making it look to observers who are not deep in the weeds that, oh, I'm such a victim and I'm being persecuted and blah, 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 right? And he can just go on and say, what have I done wrong? Show me the evidence. But it's it's sea lining. He is creating a situation where he's asking you to do hours and hours of trawling back through blog posts and doing all this shit to prove to him that he's been an asshole when he knows very well that he has been. And because it's like a DDoS on your time and attention, you don't have time to go and search through everything. I don't have my whole life to explain to him why he's wrong, but he's just going to try and create that impression to outside observers that this is also unreasonable and so forth, right? He also was on the XCC side of the fork. He was promoting them and saying that that was going to be the new Bitcoin Cash. Of course, that's not how it worked out. And this is not to say, again, to be very clear, that you couldn't have done that and later changed your mind. That's completely fair. But it is to say that this is just a constantly recurring cycle that happens every 6 to 12 months. Once it's finally cleared out of the community, it just recurs over and over and over and over again. And anybody who's paying attention to the community now can see this issue and think, this is my first example of this. But be assured that there's 4 or more other examples in the past, and there probably will be in the future. Okay. So also, as CheapLightning said, he is the catalyst for this issue, but it's also not specifically about him. And we will discuss a little bit about that. Is there anything you guys want to say on this topic? You actually probably know more about it than me.
If anybody goes back and listens to what Jeremy just said, it's probably mostly correct. I just want to say, this is often my position with things like this, that people are not always aware of their fallacies and their fallibilities and their foibles. And some people may have the absolute best of intentions and still be an absolute catastrophe in terms of like their effect on social networks and in just social settings. So my guess is that's the case here, where he may have the best of intentions, but he just cannot help himself with going into these very destructive defensive modes, where if anybody disagrees with him whatsoever, he gets into these very ugly communication patterns of passive aggression, half truths, gaslighting, and that kind of stuff. And like you said, if you're looking from the outside, it's very hard to perceive it. But if you actually had the interaction yourself, you're like, wow, this is insane. What's going on? So it's a hard thing to describe. I just wanted to say, in summary, it may not be an intentional thing. It's very possible that it's not an intentional thing.
Yeah, I don't think he's a bad guy. And like I said, he's a very passionate, libertarian and very principled and all that. It makes sense to me why he loves Bitcoin so much. I completely understand that. But whether he's aware of it or not, or to what extent, some of it just comes from his subconscious or his upbringing. And that's another part of it too, is he has in the past said, I recognize that I've had these destructive behaviors. I've gone to therapy. I'm fixed. I'm better now, or I'm trying to be better. Like he will also play up that angle of, I'm really trying. And he said to me, like, look, Jeremy, I know we've had issues, but we can work together in the future, or now things could be different, but it's just a cycle and you just get trapped in it over and over and over again. And I'm just too smart not to fall into it, right? I gave him my own fresh chance. Like you said to me, long ago, like that I was going to get into this with him. And like I said, I invited him on the show. I tried doing some projects with him, but in my own experience dealing with him and then also seeing him create drama elsewhere, I've given him plenty of chances myself, right? Yeah. CheapLightning, any thoughts on this?
Jet?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to hop in here and kind of like reaffirm that position, right? Like I remember, probably my timeline's most likely wrong here, but probably like 2019, I think, maybe 2020, George had some interaction with Poxt, and I wish I could remember what that interaction was, because I remember just chiming in at one point and calling George a pussy, and that was the very first time I ever interacted with George. He blocked me. Him and I didn't speak for a while after that. It wasn't until, Jeremy, you started doing BCH builders and trying to get involved with George, and I remember being like, oh God, this guy, and you were like, no, let's give him a chance. And we did, and I thought that was a good interaction. We followed each other for like the past year, and it was nice to see, he's clearly a passionate individual. I think he cares a lot about the space, but I feel like I'm right back to wanting to call him a pussy again. We're in this cycle now.
Cheap.
Yeah. I don't know. It's this is something that's going to come up later in the conversation as well, as regarding censorship, etc. So Bitcoin Cash is a decentralized, censorship-resistant, computer software. It's a network. It's code, right? It's money that anybody can participate in and use without censorship, or it doesn't matter if you're a Nazi or a communist or whatever way you go and lean, there's nobody stopping you, right? You can be working towards utopia, or you can be working towards the destruction of humanity, right? It's nobody can stop you. But social groups around the coin, the chain, are groups of people. We're social. We all have our own lines and boundaries, and censorship is really. I would like to think that it's a sort of universal concept of what qualifies as censorship and what does not, but it's not the same for every person. But just like BCH itself, BCH communities are also decentralized, right? So I moderate many different groups, and there are hundreds more that I have no power or influence in whatsoever, other than my proof of work. And over time, whether I talk to people about George or not, a very, very large percentage of the owners of these groups come to the same conclusion, which is that having him in the group is a time sink. And so they ask him to leave, and he makes a big stink about it. And then he also claims that, we're a cabal, we're all, insiders, whatever. And I find it amusing because there are people who I have very strongly not gotten along with who have also removed George from their groups. So, it's clearly not, the CheapLightning Brigade or anything like this, right? It's the living embodiment of the Principal Skinner meme of are the children wrong? No. No, sorry. Am I wrong? No, it has to be the children, right? So, if nobody wanted to hang out with me, I would think it's me, right? Whether it's right or not, right? It's like people misunderstand me. They don't get me. I need to do something with myself so that people want to spend time with me, right? And if that's not the case, then I don't know what to say. Like, he took a break. Like he again rage quit BCH for the third time, and of course, if I said that, so now he'll dispute the fact that he rage quit. He didn't rage quit. He took a break, or I reduced my time to work on myself, or there'll be some wishy-washy way around those particular words, right? We'll go down this black hole of the definition of rage quit and et cetera, et cetera. But for whatever reason, George, took a break or stepped back or put in less effort. And then he did some BCH work. He made some good stuff, right? George is able to produce good things when he wants to. And if he were able to produce these things and not battle with the other humans involved, I think he would get a lot of support in the community. I think what he should do is he should make his stuff and then hire a PR person or something similar to promote them, right? Then there would be no issue, right, whatsoever. But after he made that recent good work, this other round of people came and said, oh, George is a good guy. He's doing all this stuff. We should give him a second chance. Well, of course, it's not the second chance. It's the fourth or fifth chance. But for some of these people, it's the second chance. And then, immediately after building some small amount of goodwill, went on an apology tour, and he messaged almost everyone in the space who he'd been fighting with before. Copy paste chainmail the same apology to everyone with the offer of an NFT. And I don't John can tell you the story of his reaction, but the end result, and I had the same conversation with him on Telegram, which is, if you're apologizing to me, what are you apologizing for? Right. So if you make a mistake and you say, I'm sorry, well, really the word I'm sorry means that you're willing to reevaluate what you did that caused a problem. You admit that you caused the problem, and then you take action to make sure that it never happens again. But if you don't understand what it is that you did that caused the issue in the first place, your apology means nothing, right? I'm sorry I burned down your house. Well, why did you burn down my house? Well, I didn't burn down your house, but you just said you burned down my house, right? Like it becomes this circle, right? And so you get locked in this loop. And then after a while, you're just like, holy shit, I have 10,000 other things I need to do for BCH. Why am I spending hours talking to you about your inability to see the bigger picture, right? And so I have a policy now. I'm not going to be involved in anything that George is a part of, because I know it will inevitably devolve into not the topic at hand, but George and his interest or reaction in the topic, right? So it's just a do not engage. And I wish we didn't have to talk about it today. And I probably would have refused to, other than I think it would be good to have a single point where we can point people and be like, watch this, you'll get a good overview of different people's perspectives. Now, of course, I know immediately what's going to happen now. It's going to be, Jeremy and John and Jet and Cheapy are all on the same
witch hunting.
Yeah, we're all on the anti-George team, and how can you possibly, they've united, and they, I just like I don't want to deal with it. So please watch this. If this video doesn't give you a sense of pause or a yellow flag at the very least, well then by all means go ahead and attempt working with him, and then in 6 months come back and talk to us and let us know how it went.
Yeah, I think another way to put it is, I don't think any of us take any pleasure in having these uncomfortable, ugly relationships with the guy. I think every one of us would be way happier if we could find a way to get along. It's just very nearly impossible to get along with him.
Yeah, that's it. And so I have an actual example here because, again, you can go down the rabbit hole. Where's the evidence and blah, 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 blah. So I thought, you know what? Let's have one example of in his own words so people can see that I'm not just coming up with all this and like, this is it. So this is from a post that he made to his own subreddit, George Donnelly subreddit, because, again, he's been banned and restricted to so many other places. He just has his own subreddit that nobody else kind of really, well, very few people, to be accurate, would read or subscribe to. So this is from 2 years ago, as one of many examples of him rage quitting, right? So, quote, I have left RBTC and RBitcoin Cash. I have left RBTC and RBitcoin Cash because not only are they unbearably toxic, but they have tolerated many personal attacks on me over the last 2 years and take no action to stop these quote unquote 2-minute hate threads. Further, at least one of the mods of these two channels has engaged in gaslighting and personal attacks on multiple occasions. I am done with these subs. Anybody who appears in my notifications nagging me and talking crap will be blocked. Update 17 Feb 2022. The moderator whose gaslighting tipped the scales in my decision to leave these subs was subsequently suspended from Reddit for being even more abusive towards someone else. This does not prompt my return because this mod was replaced by an even more abusive and harassing user, now mod, who has published multiple baseless personal attack threads against myself. Update 16th of August 2023. After discussing with the moderator in question, I have decided to return. Update 25th of September 2023. I have left again as the exact same moderator shadow banned me despite me not having posted anything more offensive than a Twitter poll on what stablecoins people would like to see on BCH with cash tokens so we can kickstart a strong DeFi ecosystem. Very disappointing. End quote. So this is just an example where hopefully as an objective listener, you can see what's happening here. Everyone else is the bad guy. I'm not to blame. There's cycling in and out of like they gave me another chance and then it blew up again. And once again, I'm the bad guy, right? And I was being persecuted with the 2-minute hate threads in the start. It's like there's just, even in his own retelling of events, it's very clear there's just this avalanche of like, at what point do you accept that you are the common thread in all of these problems and issues? And like I said, I'm guarantee that this will just be another example of I'm being hated and persecuted. Once again, he's not necessarily a bad guy, but anybody who doesn't believe us can go talk to him or get involved with him yourself and make up your own mind. The proof will be in the pudding. So I think that's, I don't know if you
like to say that he may not just be aware of it, and I'm sure he has been wronged in some ways, right? Like people were unfairly said nasty things to him, or just in non-factual, lies or wrong things to him or whatever, or about him. I don't know. I'm sure that has happened, but that has happened to everyone, right? That has happened to everyone to some extent, especially if you've had any amount of social media engagement, Reddit, Twitter, etc. There's always going to be somebody who says something wrong, not nice about you and so forth. But the response and the overall picture is the issue, right? Like, how does that all play out is where it really goes wrong. I don't know. I hope the guy can sort things out for himself, because I think he'd have a much happier life if he could.
Cheapy, any thoughts?
I think this is, multiple moderators had problems with him, he says so in his own words, or they're not the same person. So why do all these people come to the same conclusion, right? The BCH community is made of people from all corners of the globe, from all walks of life. How are we coming to this same conclusion? Like, if I don't know who he thinks his main opposition is, maybe it was one of these former mods, or maybe he thinks it's me, or maybe I don't know who, or it doesn't matter. So if the idea is that one of us in particular are the sort of ringleader of the anti-George movement, who coordinates the secret Telegram group that sabotages George and makes sure that he's shadow banned everywhere, it's like, why would we like, what, why, how would just the logistics of that, like, why would people in the BCH community have such a an effort, right? So it's like, obviously, moderators of groups, etc., we compare notes sometimes, and it's like, hey, this guy joined your group, he ran a scam or whatever else. I'm not speaking about George, I'm just in general, right? It's like, be careful, this guy runs some bot that joins any other Telegram group that's in your community or whatever. It's like, we do that, I do that. But that's very different than trying to coordinate some attack on a particular individual. And I think maybe possibly at like the BTC fork time, there may have very well been like people who coordinated certain actions like that, but on various crypto communities to try and sabotage or whatever. But we don't have time, right? We're building stuff, we're working hard on making BCH money for the world. I don't have time to also like host a weekly meeting about how to sabotage George's life. Like, I don't even want to talk about him. Like, I have so much other stuff that I would rather be doing. And so, yeah, I think very unfortunate. I used to believe he had bad intentions, and after my 3-hour conversation with him on Telegram in the BCH Free for All group, you can go and read it. I think it's really telling. I'm 100% sure that he's just not aware, or at least can't accept his behavior. And so I don't think he's a bad guy. I think he has good intentions. I just think he's really misguided. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so I think we've just about said enough on this, but this is all to say that the BCH community has to be able to handle even people who will relentlessly come back and cause grief, intentionally or not, over and over again. That's just got to be part of, otherwise we'll just be stuck forever and we can't move on. Big V Tokyo says, could there be a cash token solution waiting to be created to fix this kind of thing, like a reputation based on proof of work and collaboration? Well, there may or may not be a cash token solution, but we already have it. It's just called life. That's what's happening here. Like, the reason that his rep in so many places is so destroyed, and he has these, things that he does this small amount of proof of work and all, like I explained, the reason he can't just point to and say, look, here's my outstanding platform with more listeners than Jeremy, even though he's been at it for like 5 years longer, is just because his proof of work is only the smallest amount to start another cycle of drama instead of just doing something real and having that clout, for real. So that's the end of it, right? So that's
wait. One more thing. I do want to, just to give the listeners some context, let them know that Jeremy gives people a lot more benefit of the doubt than I do. This was on a slide, but I don't think it was brought up. We've had a similar kind of situation with Fila's in one of his many alt accounts. And it's really hard for me to say, I can understand the perspective where it's like these people are ganging up on me because you've got 12 people who are like, don't do this. This is a mistake. But there are certain people I have made a point to go out of my way where if someone brings them up, I can't remember what episode we were planning with Felix, but it was the same thing. Jeremy was like, I'm going to invite this guy on. And I was like, don't do it. There is a long history of just insanity and headache surrounding this. And even with that, Jeremy waited until he had that interaction with him. It wasn't like, I don't think Jeremy is someone to just take the advice of someone else when it comes to dealing with individuals. And I think you do give people the benefit of the doubt a lot. But as soon as they repeatedly fuck up, it's like, oh, okay, my hands are clean. I'm done with this person.
Well, it should be, I think, and for my listeners, it should be very clear that I don't know that we've ever done a segment ever like this, ever. This is the one time, and that should honestly speak to how big of a problem it has become, or how many times I've just overlooked it, and like, I'm not trying to, weaponize this platform or do anything like that, right? But the fact that this is so unusual should speak that it's the exception that proves the rule rather than anything else. Okay, so that's George Donnelly's part. So what was the actual issue that started up here? So a couple of days ago, and I guess it was maybe on Thursday night or Friday morning UTC time, our BTC, which is the sort of biggest, if you put it that way, subreddit for discussing Bitcoin Cash, and which emerged
1 million subs, right? It's large.
Yeah, it's got 1 million subscribers, and I think it's in like the top 100 or top 200 or something, like on Reddit. Like, it's actually pretty significant. Much smaller than our Bitcoin, which is 5 or 6 million subs. But because of the block size war, and we can't rehash all of that again, but it goes back to hijacking Bitcoin and why all this is topical. All the big blockers were getting banned from our Bitcoin, and a lot of them migrated into our BTC. Now, that gave it a very strong flavor of needing to have no censorship and freedom of speech, right? Because everybody was like, we can't repeat the same mistakes of the past. And so that has set the stage for this issue, where a couple days ago, a moderator called u/althornton2462, who, as I said, I invited to come on the show and speak their perspective, or even just submit a statement or anything, emerged from 3 years of inactivity to suddenly pop back up on our BTC, is like one of the higher ranked moderators, unbanned George Donnelly, who had been banned for causing all kinds of grief in the past, like we talked about, and then sent a message to the other moderators saying, I have unbanned George Donnelly. This is not really up for discussion, but that's the part. Let's the past be the past, and let's look forward to the future, like with no discussion or context or anything. Now, this set off massive alarm bells to some of the other moderators, who I'm going to talk most specifically about, Tom Zander and Shadow of Harbinger, but the other people may or may not have been involved, right? Especially because at the same time, or shortly after this Al Thornton 2462 character also was the top mod, I believe, on our Bitcoin Cash. So there's our BTC and our Bitcoin Cash, which is, again, Bitcoin Cash is smaller than our BTC, was the top moderator there, and tried to remove the other mods on our Bitcoin Cash as well too. Now, they were not able to do that because in the Reddit site rules or whatever, if you try and remove somebody as a other mod, when you have been inactive, it doesn't let you do that. So the mods, Tom and Shadow, saw that not only was George Donnelly unbanned on RBTC, but also they were going to be unmodded on our Bitcoin Cash by this inactive character that had popped out of nowhere. So they were quite alarmed by this because, again, with the history of the block size wars and stuff, they're very, very, very alert to any kind of like PSYOP takeover like this. So they went to the Reddit admins, whatever their sub is for moderator drama, and said, hey guys, look, here's the facts of this sketchy scenario. This inactive mod is now trying to unmod us. Can you remove them as a moderator? And the Reddit admins saw that and agreed with them and removed Al Thornton as a moderator, and then also promoted Tom and Shadow to be the top moderator, which they didn't ask for, but that's what they did because they saw these are the active mods and clearly who is like looking out for the interests of the community. So they got accidentally sort of promoted, but it created a scenario where there's now the two differing mod teams, because as this drama starts to heat up, maybe let's just start with that. That's the first stage of what happened. Thoughts on this, Emergent?
There's one little extra detail which is important maybe on the R Bitcoin Cash. They were reordered by the Reddit mods, and that put them specifically above the person I think who created the sub, who was inactive, right? They hadn't been active in the sub for a long time and hadn't been active as a mod. I don't know if they were active in the sub. They hadn't been active as a mod. They were marked as inactive. And so it put them above that person. And so that person, right? That's the next.
Okay.
No. That's Bitcoin is the future. The account Bitcoin is the future. Yeah. And so then that created that person's response to it and so forth. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of room for misunderstanding of what happened here. Yeah. So I thought that was important to inject that happened.
Okay, so Bitcoin is the future now falls down the list behind Tom and Shadow. Al Thornton is out, and Bitcoin is the future then posted a right on our BTC saying, this is a takeover. Our Bitcoin Cash has now been sort of taken away from me. I've been actively observing it, even though I haven't been, in the weeds moderating, and the sub has been fine this whole time. But now I'm suddenly, demoted down the list, even though I've done nothing wrong, right? And so then community drama is heating up based on that. Chibi, do you have any thoughts before we get on the next bit?
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate as far as my understanding as well. I'm not 100% sure what happened in the background. I think there's also some these other moderators didn't vote, or they abstained from when the discussions were taking place about George to begin with. They didn't express their opinion at that time. At least the majority of them didn't. I'm not sure exactly the numbers there. But yeah, so...
No. The majority, I think, did. The active mods did. And then the ones who were inactive were invited and didn't say anything, according to the mod stuff that I have heard. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. So that the time to speak up and debate was probably there. But if you are letting other people control a group, well, then of course you just kind of have to accept that they're going to do things, right? It's I guess we'll get into more of that later. But
one thing I'm not sure of, how was Al Thornton in both? Because Al Thornton was basically an inactive ancient account that was just sitting there on RBTC for a long time. But on our Bitcoin Cash, it was also there, or did he get added to our Bitcoin Cash? Or
I think it just might have been there historically since years ago, and just this sleeper account. Again, you can. Yeah, I believe so. If somebody knows otherwise, they can correct us. But as far as I'm aware, I believe that's the case. And so that's why, of course, coming to the same point as talking about George or anything else, so much of the Bitcoin Cash space specifically has to operate on reputation, right? Because the community has been through so many griefs in the past with BTC, with XTC, with BSV, with Nexo, with Smart BCH, with everything, CoinFlex, right? It's always just the same story, is the community is primed to be very, very sensitive to random or unknown or like low proof of work people with no rep or weird reps or outdated rep just popping up to cause some chaos because it's been seen to be a problem so many times. So all of this, is now creating like the drama is heating up as this story is breaking. People are wondering what's going on. Tom and Shadow are saying, okay, we're in Bitcoin Cash, and our BTC has now got the unbanned George with this inactive moderator. So the top moderator on our BTC is Roger Ver, right? Memory Dealers. And he started getting messages and people flooding into his inbox about like what's going on here, like you got to step in, like what's going on, because and so he came in to sort of try and somewhat resolve the situation, I guess, in his mind, or to figure out what to do. So his plan of attack, what he did was he unmoderated all the rest of the moderators. So the whole mod list except himself got reset on our BTC. That was, I guess, his first step, was like, look, let's just wipe this lane clean and figure it out from there. And then he re-added Bitcoin XIO and Al Thornton as the only other moderators, which he told me, like I said before, that he had checked with Al Thornton, who he is prepared to vouch for and is apparently known for a long time, that they had not been hacked, or this was not some Thamos type, skullduggery takeover. From his point of view, that, Al Thornton is some reasonable character and they were justified to be in the mods, and all the other mods are off, right? So that actually included me, because I'm Shibanator. I was one of the mods. Somebody added me in there, but I was like low tier and I rarely ever did anything, right? But me, Shadow, Tom Zander, Lovely Day here, Mob2, a bunch of people that are very credible, especially in the RBTC subreddit, were all completely out of there, right? So there's been this sudden shake-up in the mods.
It's really worth repeating. It's really worth repeating that all those names you mentioned, if you're listening to this and you don't know, those names that you mentioned have long years of proof of work, very many years of proof of work, right? So they're very well known and trusted and respected. So that's a weighty thing to say, right? Which is exactly correct what you said, that they were just wiped. And Al Thornton, I guess through personal relationship with Roger, I don't know what the trust model is there, but that person in particular was added back, along with who was the other one?
Bitcoin XIO.
I'm pretty sure
Bitcoin XIO. Yeah,
pretty sure that Bitcoin XIO was never removed because it's a suspended account.
Right. Okay. Yeah. His account was suspended years and years ago. So basically, Roger added back Al Thornton as the single mod, which, from the community's perspective, is mind blowing, because nobody knows who that account is. Roger knows who it is, but nobody else does. Sorry, I just wanted to reinforce that these mods that were kicked out are not just random names. These were very well respected and have done a lot of work over time.
Yeah, right. So that, and a lot of, just sort of unpaid, volunteer work. This is pretty thankless work, except for this, incident that you have this credibility that you've built up. So anyway, this then created a huge outcry, right? Like the pushback was immense and overwhelming. This was not sort of like some people were on one side and some people were on the other side. Obviously, there was people on sort of both sides of the issue, but I would estimate at least 95% of the actual user base of RBTC, a landslide, let's put it that way. So I have a screenshot here of some of the outcry. So this was the front page. I think I took this screenshot maybe on like Friday night or something like this. And I just want to read out what the top posts were, okay? So the top posts were: petition to remove moderator Al Thornton 2462 as he is unfit to lead the community in an honest way. Next post. This sub has now been successfully hijacked, but hey, we can now say yay, free speech. Next post. Request for UAL Thornton 2462 to step down as mod. Next post. Poll, should UAL Thornton step down / be removed as mod. Next post. The problem isn't the mod team, and it never was. Next post. This one's from Roger. New moderators are on the way and have been instructed to err on the side of more free speech. They're not enough. They will also be inviting back the other moderators I removed earlier today. I hope we can be one big happy family again. So that was, when he'd made the change to Al Thornton. And then the next post, I would just like to state that I'm the only person capable of maintaining all the anti-spam bots on this subreddit. Also, the second bot has been disabled. Expect spam. That was from Shadow after being removed as mod and being like, well, I can't do anything. And this poll that was run, again, it's just an online anonymous poll. I'm sure somebody will come in and say, well, it was just botted or, whatever. Like, you can find any way to spin the narrative. But the poll asking for Al Thornton to step down got 179 votes for yes, 28 for no, and 28 abstain, which that screenshot I took shortly after this all sort of got resolved. So that was kind of the final state. But at the time that it was happening, it was very, very clear, overwhelmingly, yes votes. And then you also had in every single thread, you had Al Thornton and only a couple of other accounts sort of saying, oh, guys, we need free speech, bring back George Donnelly, that kind of thing. And all the upvotes and all the other comments were all going to like, guys, what are we doing? This is crazy. This is a takeover. Like, where's this psyop suddenly appeared from? On and on and on. And anybody can go back and look at the threads and see for themselves.
Not only that, but also apologizing. I mean, they didn't do anything wrong, but apologizing vicariously or whatever for as a proxy to the existing mods and speaking in support of the existing mods, not as perfect. Actually, there were a number of accounts that came out and said, like, I have personal beef with this mod, but this is fucked up. And this is not right. And overall, this is the wrong thing obviously happened here. And these mods have kept everything peaceful and a nice place to talk for a long time. So yeah, it was not only against whatever happened, but it was in support of what was happening before.
Cheapy, thoughts on this?
What a mess. I've butted heads with the moderators myself, and so I think it's not fair to say that Tom and Shadow and the other mods and I are friends, right? We butt heads all the time, and yet I think they were done dirty, right? What happened to these guys is just totally tragic, right? I feel it's quite personal as well, as an unpaid moderator who spends a huge number of hours every week moderating stuff for free. Thanks are few and far between. And then to have someone just come in and be like, wait, who are you? Get out. Right? It's like, you didn't notice like my hundreds of hours and thousands of actions. Why didn't you notice that? Why didn't you ask me what's going on? Right. And so Roger absolutely dropped the ball there. And, Al Thornton may be his best friend in the world, but the community doesn't know who he is. I have no idea. I've never seen that account before today. So maybe Roger has the proof of work with him.
Or Fire Duck.
Fire Duck, right? So
we get onto that.
We haven't talked about that yet, but Roger maybe trusts this guy. Roger doesn't want to deal with it, so I'm going to appoint somebody to deal with it, right? Well, who does he appoint to deal with it? He appoints the guy who lit the match for this whole bullshit festival. And, to be fair, Roger probably didn't look into it to know that he was the guy who lit the match in this bullshit festival. and so that's another minus for Roger there, right? He didn't even take the time to figure out what was going on. He outsourced responsibility to the guy who caused the problem, and then of course the guy doubled down and made the problem worse. And I don't know if that's on the next.
Yeah, that is the next slide. So let's just get on to the next bit then. So there's this huge outcry on Reddit itself, but obviously Al Thornton is saying, no, guys, it's like, this is fine with the house exploding behind him. Like, no, this is free speech. This is what you all want, as getting flooded by like, no, we don't want this. This is what's going on, every single thread. But then the debate, of course, then routed around the discussion, because you couldn't, the community is going to talk everywhere, right? So the Telegram group is just flooded with people discussing this. David Shares was one notable person that was in favor of the, sort of free speech for George Donnelly kind of idea, and this sudden instigation of this new moderator. But most other people not. The same on Twitter. The conversation is, going off as people are like, what is this? Why are we suddenly essentially under attack, with a repeat of Thamos, in going on in our Bitcoin? Of course, it's a subtle issue, because the problem with Thamos was that he just started mass banning the community. Now, in this case, the community, at least from my point of view, but I would say pretty objectively, as we saw with the threads and the poll, was on the side, in quotation marks, of censorship. They were like, no, we want George should stay banned, or at the very least, whether or not he should be banned, the existing moderators should be respected, right? And several people I saw make comments saying, I don't think George should be banned, but I think the mods are doing a fantastic job. And if they've discussed it in detail and thinks he should be banned, then I'm happy to respect that, because, they've looked into this all, more than I have to. And they're the one who has to deal with the fallout, right? So you had all this discussion happening around that, and how obvious it was that this, it's just free speech, thing was so ridiculous, because Al Thornton then added George Donnelly himself as another mod. So George Donnelly has gone from banned from the subreddit to all the other mods are wiped out, and it's now Al Thornton and George Donnelly that are the mods, which is like a complete, 180 in the space of about 12 hours. And Roger, people are petitioning Roger as like, what the hell is going on? Like, you put this guy in, he was the trusted one, and now he's put George Donnelly as the moderator himself, right? Like, it was just getting worse and worse, right?
Yeah, I guess I don't have a problem saying this. Yeah, so issues about George heated up again several months ago. And so Roger reached out to me to ask, like, what should he do about this issue? And, I gave the opinion that I gave here today, right? Which is, I don't think George is evil or a CIA plant. I think he just has difficulty getting along with people, and that, it's a net negative, and it's not worth the trouble having him around, right? Obviously that advice was not powerful enough, but whatever. And so when this also blew up, I again had an exchange with Roger about it. And it's like, hey, what's going on, man? Like, this is not okay. And he asked me, he's like, well, what do you have personal experience with George? And so I laid it all out again. And I raised the point that, like, I think probably the entire course of Bitcoin can go back to Gavin not taking a hard stance on Luke Jr. and Greg Maxwell, right? by being Mr. Nice Guy and trying to give everyone, the opportunity to speak their mind and whatever. But at some point, like after, obviously, welcome people into your group and hear what they have to say. But if what they say is insane, right, then you just like, hey, guys, no, we're making peer-to-peer cash. I don't know what this like 300 kilobyte block shit you're talking about is, but get that out of here. That's not what we're working on, right? So if Gavin, who's a super nice guy, nice to a fault, had taken a stronger stance about chaos actors, right? And it's not, doesn't have anything to do with intention. These people may very well think that Bitcoin would be better with, whatever. If he had taken a hard stance and said, no, guys, we're going this way. This is the way it's supposed to go. BCH wouldn't exist, right? We'd all be in Bitcoin land. Ethereum wouldn't exist, right? And so, yeah, there is no evidence out there that George, stole vast sums of money from the community or bombed a church or, anything like that, right? It's just like he's difficult to get along with, right? That's not only difficult, but, is a time vampire.
He's incendiary.
Sure. Right.
Yeah. It's really time consuming. Yeah.
And that the community only has so much energy, right? So it's like you got to deal with George, or you got to build something. Which is it going to be? And to that, Roger said, "That's a good point," and that was it. A couple hours pass, George is suddenly a mod, right? And I'm like, oh, what the fuck? Like, after all of this work, going back and forth and writing all this stuff again, like I'm just being ignored. Like I laid it out, dude. And so I was ready to just like, rip Roger and be like, dude, I used to respect you, like what the fuck? And so I messaged him and I was like, there are no words, right? Because it's just like, okay, new mods are going to be in action. It's Al Thornton and George. It's like, how is this a solution, right? So I just said to him, there are no words. And he's like, oh, what happened now? And I was like, George Donnelly's a mod. And he's like, what? I never authorized that. Oh, it's 2 a.m. I'll deal with it in the morning. And I was like, yeah, it's 2 a.m. here. I guess he's in Japan now too. And so he's like, okay. And then he removed, he's like, oh, who did that? I said, I have no idea. And he's like, okay. And then he removed George. And then that was the end of it.
And it was confirmed that it was Al Thornton who added George as a mod. That was also, in the public mod logs. So that was known.
Yes. So if anyone is wondering, no, that wasn't George. I mean, George put Al Thornton in gave the keys to the kingdom to Al Thornton, who then invited George, but Roger wasn't directly responsible for the promotion of George. So don't get confused about that.
Imagine any thoughts on this? The Uno Reverso.
I don't know what to say yet. Yeah, where are we in the timeline here? Right.
Okay.
So, yeah, if we're getting into the responsibility angle, that's a whole nother discussion that maybe we can open up.
Well, yeah, that's coming in a second. So let me just
finish the
let's finish this.
The timeline should probably be wrapped up.
Right, so then not only do you now have George Donnelly as a mod and Al Thornton up there, but the censorship kicked in. This free speech for everyone campaign had lasted less than 24 hours before the censorship from Al Thornton also started. There was I've got a picture here on the slide of somebody made a satirical post called BCH Orgy Ideas. Hey, all, posting here in their free speech sub and making sure to stay on topic. I'd like to discuss the possibility of an orgy with all of you, going on. So it was kind of like, satirizing the fact that there's a very big difference between free speech or / censorship free and moderating, having a focused place of discussion with people who wanted to discuss, Bitcoin. But that then got censored and removed. And then also a user veterinarian 599 was banned by Al Thornton, which was again visible in the public mod logs, for violating quote unquote the Reddit terms of service. So the community at this point is still going like ballistic, as it's like this takeover essentially is in action. And it wasn't even subtle. It was like, okay, we've got a new mod, old mods are out, George Donnelly's a mod, and we're censoring you as well too. Like, it was all very rapid fire. And obviously some people, a small minority of people in the community, had the point of view like, this is fine, like we want free speech and I'm glad George is getting a new chance and whatever. But like, the degeneration is just so rapid that I think at this point anybody who's still defending that point of view is just clearly not looking at the facts, or is just bought into their their own Kool-Aid or whatever. And so, again, there was just more and more posts complaining, why is the mods being changed, what's going on here, this is a takeover, etc., etc., etc. So yeah,
I'd like to steelman just a little bit though, because it's being framed right now, the way you're talking about it is that these guys were basically full of shit. And the Al Thornton and the
David Shares
was saying this stuff and so forth. Yeah, so I'm sure they really believe what they were saying, right? That this is censorship and we should allow George to have what he wants to say and he should be allowed in the sub and so forth. But what they're really saying, what they're saying is, it should be free speech. Everybody should be able to say whatever they want. But then it's also like, okay, but they aren't moderating. They aren't taking the time to take care of the sub. And the unspoken reality, right, is that, okay, if you literally don't moderate the sub, it turns to complete shit, right? Like advertisements, spam, tokens, like all kinds of random shit just start popping up from all over the place. It's an absolute mess when you do that. And people will just literally leave, right? Because it's just it's a swamp at that point.
They did, because it was getting like that, right?
Right, it was before. That's right, it was. And so there's this huge chasm between like this absolutist position of like anybody can say anything anywhere on RBTC, and it's like, okay, all right, if that's what is desired for RBTC, then okay, the owner has said that that's what they want. But the fact of the matter is that the sub was left to its own devices, and those moderators came up and volunteered and decided to take care of things and make sure it didn't actually turn into this horrible place that's impossible to, the huge amount of noise and no signal. And they did a very good job. And not only that, but in my opinion, this is my opinion part of it, they kept the sub open. It was extremely open. It's full of trolls. There's still a lot of trolls in there who say all kinds of stupid, nasty, weird shit about BTC or Bitcoin Cash or whatever it is. But they're tolerated because they don't, they're not extremely disruptive. They're just kind of trolls. George is his own category here, right? Where he specifically got identified as someone who is not only causing problems, but is just a persistent problem for the sub, that it's like, look, it's just not worth it to deal with him. And so that group left him out. So anyway, I just wanted to say, yeah.
I mean, it makes sense
to bring up that context.
Like you have to say, and it's true that at a very simplistic analysis, I understand this position that David Shares had, which was like, guys, we've become what we were fighting, like once upon a time, we were all getting banned from our Bitcoin and Thamos was a dictator and so on, and we created our BTC and everybody went there, in protest of that. And now it's like you've just become what you hated. But I think that's it's the same as the whole BSV and the block size thing. Like there is a middle ground. There's, BTC small blocks forever and BSV gigamegs unlimited. Like, no, both of those extremes are stupid. There is a sensible middle ground that you can have. And to do that, you've got to be able to have a nuanced discussion and think about things reasonably. It's the exact same. RBTC banning, like Thamos literally posted, I want 90% of users to leave if they disagree with me. Like if 90% of the community, they're all wrong and I'm right. And then in this RBTC case, it's like
in our Bitcoin, just to correct.
In our Bitcoin, right? Back in the day, right? And then now in RBTC, it's the opposite. 90% of the users, at least more, or whatever, like we saw, were advocating, no, listen to the mods. The mods are doing a good job. It was a landslide. It was not, and a small minority of people will disagree and say it's hypocritical, whatever. But it's like, no, clearly the bulk of the reasonable people have figured out that there does have to be some moderation and there does have to be some limits. And if some people are going to be so disruptive over and over and over again, then it's just like, you can't destroy the conversation space for 99% of people for this, edge cases. Like that doesn't serve anybody except the edge cases that want to be disruptive.
I think you said it really well. You said it really well on Twitter, just that, where you said, look, there's a world of difference between banning like 10% of a sub, which is like what happened back in the day, right? In the 2015, 16, 17, huge, like double-digit percents of the sub literally got banned versus, even 1%. 1% would be insane. That would be crazy too. Or maybe even 0.1%, but we're talking about like counting on a hand kind of things, or one, or right. There's just, you just cannot in good faith say that those are the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, Atom back is still allowed in our BTC, right? There's got to be like that. Yeah, I don't think people have really thought it through enough.
There's a huge difference between censoring like a topic like big blocks or a scaling solution, or changing block time or whatever, right? Like I disagree with changing the block time, right? But I would never advocate for like that topic to be disallowed, right? There's a huge difference between banning like the discussion of scaling Bitcoin versus that one guy causes trouble, right? Can you not see the difference? Well, no, it's a slippery slope, because if you ban that one guy, well, then that means that opens the door for you to ban literally everyone. Well, no, that's not how it works, right? It's not, and then the other argument I heard over and over and over again, it was like, yeah, but it's Reddit, so you just downvote the posts that are not good. Well, it's like, already I don't have time to get all of the good BCH news, right? And if I also had to troll through all of the Sonic Obama Inu 10 posts and downvote them, right? If I why would I go to RBTC if it was like 1% of the information I was looking for, right? It becomes, free speech. But what are we talking about here? Are we talking about creating peer-to-peer cash for the world? Or are we talking about creating a free speech zone on the internet where anything goes, right? They're not the same thing. And if the purpose of the sub is to talk about peer-to-peer cash for the world, well, then it has to stay on topic, right? Oh, well, if you're banning topics, that's censorship. It's just a question of where the line is, right? So, I want to talk about my lemonade stand. Oh, does it accept BCH? No, it doesn't. Well, why are you posting about it in our BTC? Well, it's free speech. Why can't I? Oh, no, it has to be about crypto. Oh, okay. Well, I have Sonic Obama Inu 10. It's going to 1000x this year. Like, well, I guess that's crypto related, sort of, but is this the right place for it? Like, what kind of place do you want to set up? So, in that case, if moderators are not going to be banning posts or censoring, quote unquote censoring, well, then you need to step up as a mod, and you need to dedicate hours of your day every day to make sure that you downvote all of the posts that are off topic, because that's the new way, right? Well, I hope you have enough downvotes, because there's a lot more of them than there are of you. And financial interests will make sure that garbage floats to the top and all legitimate users will leave. So, it's just asking for trouble, having a completely open door.
Okay, so we've got a comment here from Renegade_div, but it's Renegade in the chat, who says, "There's no difference. Sorry. You guys are aligned in spirit with Thamos. The only reason why you think it's different, because you were the George Donnelly of our Bitcoin," end quote. So this is the sort of counter argument, but like, I don't know how much more clearly we can explain than we already have. We're talking about Renegade has not been banned. David Shares or whoever else has not been banned. There's literally been one person banned. If one person being banned is like, it's a takeover, it's the end of the world, it's the end of free speech, that is completely different from, like our Bitcoin. I'm telling you, it was thread after thread after thread with just deleted in every single thread, and people being banned en masse in the thousands or the tens of thousands or more, probably, right? There's people who have this absolutist binary position and can't understand the gap between those two things. Like, I don't know what more. You can look for yourself. I read out the top posts, and that went on for more than 24 hours. Just every single post was, what are we doing here, guys? This is insane. Like, we need to turn this around. Go back and read the threads. Like, it's okay if you have that position, but you are in the tiny minority to think that it's the same thing. That's,
So this there's a little bit of a tiny bit of a steel man. I wouldn't call it a steel man, but a little bit of one on this point, which is, and this gets to probably a later discussion that we need to talk about, which is, this is a specific platform for communication that is fundamentally owned by one person. That's Roger Ver. And then, of course, above him, Reddit. And if he has the intent that it's supposed to be anyone can talk about anything, then okay, that's the intent of it. Now, who's going to moderate that and so forth, or not moderate it or whatever, that kind of sub gets immediately shut down in Reddit. Actually, unmoderated subs get shut down and closed. So that doesn't work as a practical issue. But sorry, what I'm trying to say is, if the intent is to be a certain type of sub, then okay, make that clear as the owner. Make sure the expectations are clear ahead of time. But to come back after years of not participating, and these volunteers having stepped up and kept the house nice and clean, and calling them like Thamos censors is absolute nonsense. That's not what they did. They kept the place nice, right? Like free of spam, free of nonsense, free of bullshit. To have those people then just unceremoniously dumped, right, and with no apologies whatsoever and so forth, like, that's just a breeding ground for bad blood. So yeah, if you want the sub to be that way, okay, that's one thing. But come on, step up and make it clear what it is, if that's what it's going to be.
All right, so Renegade has written and said, but you're assuming that Thamos was evil. Give him benefit of the doubt and assume he had good intentions. How is he different? I already explained that there's a huge difference between a mass campaign versus one person. And then also, hang on, Renegade also said, is it impossible to ban an individual from a censorship-free subreddit? No. Did you guys do it properly? Absolutely not. Any bans like this should be taken seriously, not run victory laps like you guys were on Twitter, in brackets, months down the road. And I got to say, this is...
Can you guys hear me? He cut out for me.
Yeah.
Yep, no problem.
I can hear me. Anyway, but yeah, I'm glad that Renegade can agree that banning someone is okay. But did you guys do it properly? What's this, you guys? I didn't ban him. Emergent didn't. CheapLightning didn't. I was technically a mod, but I wasn't even involved in that discussion. This is, has been a policy in RBDC for months that was, debated heavily amongst the active moderators. And it's not like 3 months later we've just decided to have a party that George Donnelly is banned. No, it's the exact opposite. Everything was fine. This only happened because the existing, the inactive mod appeared out of nowhere to reverse the situation with no discussion. Nobody even said there could be a discussion about unbanning George Donnelly, but that was not even had. It was just a unilateral action from an unproven moderator out of nowhere that then also coincided with trying to remove mods on a separate subreddit at the exact same time, and that sparked all of this shit. So it's not about some dunk on George Donnelly or banning him.
With like, and there will be no discussion about it, or like my decision is final or something like that as well, right? That, talk about authoritarianism, right? It's like, you know, guy comes out of the blue and makes a decree. I mean, it happens to be about George, but if you're concerned about censorship, oh my God, that's a far bigger issue. How come some account with no proof of work, in my eyes anyway, who you know, sabotages at least one subreddit and tries to destroy the mod team, isn't being given nearly as much flack as the people who, like, in a moment of panic, were like, oh shit, what's going on? We're being taken over. How can we make sure that the sub stays alive? Right? It's like, that's the issue. George is just tangentially connected to it, right? So if you
catalyst
is the catalyst. So if you're worried about censorship, have a look, right? What's going on over there?
All right, so let me just add, you know, the next stage of the story. So anyway, the community is going ballistic as all of this is happening across the different discussion, you know, platforms, as we can see here with Renegade. You know, some people have a disagreement with this, but I think they're in the heavy minority. Again, just my perspective, but anybody can, you know, go back, look at the threads and figure out for themselves what they think. And of course, this now started to spread out, right? Is like when the BCH, you know, it was very ironic because that afternoon I talked to Ryan Giffen and Jonathan Silverblood. We had our Bliss call, you know, we were catching up, we're organizing things. And so I discussed this a little bit with them, you know, from their point of view, they were not involved, you know, this is like everybody's having a big drama about this, but you got to remember that all of Bitcoin Cash, some people started with these weird takes like, oh, is Bitcoin Cash just relying on this one subreddit, adding one guy back to a thing? It's sinking a whole decentralized cryptocurrency. Oh my God, look, it isn't actually that decentralized if we can't handle like one troll in a subreddit. And it was kind of like, no, 99% of the network is just, you know, busy. But this focus of discussion and this issue is important because of all the historical ramifications. And I think people saying it's just one person, or we should be able to just tolerate like one troll, it's like, well, there's a big difference between tolerating if you're not involved and so on versus if you are the moderator and you have to deal with it over and over and over and over and over again. And some people also said, well, it's just one person, that can't make that big of a difference. But the thing is, it can. And we know that because in cases with George Donnelly, everything just devolves into the George Donnelly debate 24/7 until the entire communication signal has been reduced to zero. So in his case, that's true. And also
exactly like this,
right? The proof is in the pudding. We have to do a whole fucking episode on this. You know, like, I'm not going to do another 200 episodes of should George Donnelly not or be unbanned. The fact that that's even possible shows that the obvious solution is ban him and let's move on. You know, if anybody else had justified a whole fucking episode, you'd be wondering what was wrong with them rather than the entire rest of the community, right? So I mean, that's just pretty clear. And so, you know, but then other people, and a lot of people were asking for this episode. A lot of people were like, Jeremy, what's going on? You know, what's happening here? Blah, blah, blah. So now we've delivered this episode. But the point was that this small thing is now spreading out and becoming a bigger thing. So the next morning, Roger woke up again, you know, from being asleep and saw that, you know, this had all kicked off and that George Donnelly had been made a mod and everybody's still rioting on the sub. And so he made a post with the new moderation policy. So he said, I'm just trying to pull it up here. He made a post saying, can't you guys just all agree to allow each other to talk about crypto here? New moderation updates. Quote, it seems like every time someone on the internet gets a taste of power, they try to abuse it. I reinstated the user who was recently banned and removed both George Donnelly and Al Thornton as mods. I hope the remaining mods can continue to allow capital letters, free and open discussion about all things cryptocurrency related, end caps. For now, Bitcoin is Te Future has my full blessing to run this sub however he wants, as long as free speech is allowed to continue, in brackets. That includes adding or removing other mods, close brackets. In bold all caps, I do not want and do not have time to be an active moderator here, and bold in all caps. I'm also super annoyed that this has taken up so much of my time the last few days. Please take care of things without contacting me about every little detail. I've done enough for crypto already, and I don't need this kind of stupidity in my life. End post. So
none of us need this kind of stupidity in our lives, right? None of us want to be dealing with any of this stuff.
Well, that's right. None of it needs to be done. But he was then criticized on the sub, and I would say rightly so, for you can't say, guys, don't bother me about this. I don't want to be involved. At the same time as, like you said, having like kicked the hornet's nest, when he came in, he didn't talk to the existing moderators, find out what the issue was, and work out a solution with them. Instead, he unmodded them, put his mate Al Thornton in, who then added George Donnelly. So whatever trust he had in Al Thornton was clearly misplaced. And the censorship and grief started up instantly with the whole community rioting. It's like, you can't just say, stop bothering me, like, leave me alone. If you are the top mod who has the power, who is the only one with the power to fix the situation, and you've instigated that situation, it's pretty ridiculous to say, look, just leave me alone, I'm too busy, right?
No complaints from you there.
Yeah, just to put it from the other perspective, right? Like, I can imagine where Roger's coming from is that he trusts Al Thornton and whoever else was he immediately put back into, and things moved so quickly that he was obviously in communication with them, right? Because how would he have known to add these particular? So somewhere in the background, he was in communication with these guys. So he trusted them. And from his perspective, he's like, okay, these guys that I trust, they have aligned and, whatever with me, we're well-aligned people, and I'm going to trust them to do the right thing. And if other people are fighting with them, they're probably wrong. So that's probably what was going through his mind, right? The problem is that he was wrong. Those people were not aligned with the majority of the people in the group. And if the majority of the people in the group are wrong, so to speak, from Roger's perspective, then it's again his problem, right? Because, okay, you've let this thing go off from whatever his perspective is. You've let it go off into the grass. Well, how did it get there? It got there because you weren't managing it. You weren't taking ownership of it, or you didn't have someone there who's aligned with you taking ownership of it. So what the community, I'm just going to say it, like what the community considers the appropriate topics and discussions and so forth, to what they consider to be appropriate. If there's a mismatch between those two, that's also on you, right? Because you let that happen. So yeah, there's no way to look at this. I can understand. I can have some sympathy for, hey, I trusted these guys and to do the thing because I think we're on the same page. But at the same time, there's I think zero room for sympathy on, this isn't my problem and I didn't cause a problem here.
And so just to add a little bit more to that, so as promised, most of the other mods were re-invited back, right? So I got a mod invite, I believe Shadow did, Tom Zander, Lovely Day, Mob2. I believe everybody got an invite to be a mod again, but during the process of this whole chaos and subsequent to receiving those invites, as far as I'm aware, pretty much all those people were essentially conscientious objectors to reinstating themselves as mods for this exact reason, because that would legitimize the whole sequence of events that had gone before it. And if anybody else is being re-added as a mod, they would be lower in the queue behind obviously Roger and also Al Thornton, right? Until Al Thornton got kicked out. So where does this leave things now? On the next slide, I have the current list of moderators. So after Roger made these changes,
Can you just go
things. Yeah, okay. Go on, Cheapy.
I think you're burying the lead here.
Previous slide. Yeah.
The previous slide here. I think this is huge, right? And Jet, thank you. This absolutely needs to be shouted, right? So, can't you guys all agree to allow each other to talk about crypto here? And then in bold letters, or all caps later, free and open discussion about all things cryptocurrency related, right? That is a change. As far as I know, that is a massive change in the scope of the subreddit, right? Before it was all things Bitcoin, and you could, sort of stretch that and massage it a little bit to, things cryptocurrency-ish. However, that's not the new mandate, right? The new mandate is all things cryptocurrency related. Cryptocurrency related. That includes Sonic Obama Inu 10, that includes Trump NFTs, that includes, any shit token, any of the thousands of tokens and projects that are related on that are listed on CoinMarketCap, right? The RBTC sub is now the free-for-all crypto discussion platform, right? And so as a moderator of the sub, you now have to make a judgment call about what is or what isn't cryptocurrency adjacent, right? This is a huge increase in the amount of work for the moderators. And if you are, focused on peer-to-peer cash for the world, like if he said free and open discussion about all things peer-to-peer electronic cash related, right? That limits the scope drastically, but that's not what he said. It's all things cryptocurrency. So now moderators who perhaps are incredibly passionate BCH or peer-to-peer cash supporters have just had their job description changed, right? Now they have to moderate a sub that's everything tangentially related to cryptocurrency. And obviously the job wasn't offered to me, but if Roger offered me, he's like, hey, do you want to be a mod under FireDuck, who you have no idea who that person is, but he's boss now. I would say no, because I don't give a shit about cryptocurrency, right? I want peer-to-peer cash for the world. That's what I'm working on every single day for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. I don't give a shit about all the pump and dump, get rich quick schemes, right? I don't want to try and vet any of these other projects, right? But that's what the sub is now, right? At least according to this. Who knows if actual like hard policies are going to be laid out? I don't know if they will be, but if they are, I'd be curious to hear what exactly the new policies are going to be.
Right. So essentially, though, everything. No, that was great. That was a very good point to bring up. But just to bring it full circle on where we are now, is that this is kind of the end of the timeline where things have got to in terms of the actual drama, in the sense that Roger made that post, everybody sort of took a little bit to reflect on it, and things have settled down uneasily, I'll say, back to not being in a state of chaos, right? So the moderators now are Roger, Memory Dealers. He's the sort of top in this ranking, which is of course important as to who moderates the moderators, right? Bitcoin XIO, I think you said that account's been inactive or banned. Then the public mod logs, and then the mod logs. So they're automated accounts. So the second moderator today under Roger is FireDuck. Now, who is FireDuck, right? You think after all this drama, there would be quite some investigation into who would be on the moderator. I don't really know, to be honest. FireDuck got in there with Al Thornton because Roger made a post saying, if you want to be a moderator, just reply here with your sort of resume, and if I'll consider it, basically. And so FireDuck has just been put in there, who might be a very passionate RBTC contributor or whatever, but I don't recognize the username, and it's just now in there at position number 2. No not Shadow, not Tom Zander, not Lovely Day here, not Mob2, not anybody else who had, who are all mostly in protest of this. That's one reason. But the other reason is they're apparently not being considered or selected versus Fireduck. Then Bitcoin is Tay Future, Bitcoinopoly, who I know those two names and they seem to be reasonable, but I think Bitcoin is Tay Future was a bit more on the side of quote unquote free speech, but seems fairly reasonable. Nilak the Grim, Kalen, BitJason, Jason Dreisner, and one might be a penguin who I also know. So I got to say, like, from this list, it's like, yeah, these bottom names I'm pretty on board with, but they're also the bottom names. So if this started up again, they would probably just get unmodded by the sort of senior mods to them, and we're in exactly the same situation, right? Thoughts on these mod shake up here?
Yeah, well, this goes back to the thing that I was saying at the beginning. What it really boils down to is there's an owner of the platform, and everybody who participates either as a mod or content creator or just part of the conversation, this brings to the forefront that the person who owns your platform has a lot of power over what happens there. And so you invest, like, I'm not one of the mods. I've never been one of those mods, right? But I just imagine from their perspective, you invest literally years and years of moderating on a daily basis, right? Like on a daily basis, working on this shit, communicating with the other mods, sorting things out, taking care of spam, coming up with filters and all this shit. And then the owner comes in and is like, that's not what I wanted. Goodbye. That's a hard pill to swallow. Yeah, that you were doing for free, with there's no like commercial interests here, right? There's nobody selling ads, as far as I know. I'd bet a lot of money that there's no ad revenue or anything like that going on here. There's no revenue streams here. To be told that, what a hard pill to swallow. It's something to be aware of going forward, right? That there is an owner to it. And right now the owner is first Roger and then Fireduck.
Yes. So it seems to me it's like the problem hasn't really been resolved, because this is in a perfect state for this exact same thing to reoccur at any time, because Roger is still the number one, and also, if he's busy or uninterested or whatever, then he's going to delegate, and then Fireduck is number two, who at least maybe Fireduck can earn some credibility over time, but at this point in time is essentially the same as Al Thornton, just an account that nobody really knows, who could come up with any massive shakeup at any time, right?
Well, there's a huge point, which is exactly what I was making, was that this incident has made it, for anybody who's paying attention, abundantly clear that the absentee owner can come back of a platform, can come back and change whatever they want. And so that's a big difference, right? Because now anybody who's considering contributing is in the position to say, okay, I can't pretend or ignore or not be aware of anymore this fact. I have to decide, do I contribute to this or not, right? Like, you trick me once. I'm not saying that somebody was tricked here, right? But just the phrase, you trick me once, shame on you. You trick me twice, shame on me. There's no way people are not aware at this point. So everybody has a choice to make, basically.
So other things that I think emerged, out of all this is that, firstly, from my point of view, I was really quite impressed that the BCH community reacted the way that it did. Like, obviously, in a controversy, there's going to be two sides, and some people are going to be on one side or the other. But with the exception of, Renegade and David Shares and a couple other people, for the most part, the majority of the community seemed to recognize this for what it was and how unreasonable it was, and to immediately protest it. And I think it was a demonstration that the BCH community is quite psyop, maybe that's taking the words a bit far, but resistant to that, because like I've said before, we win once enough people in the world have the same vision of BCH and can just reconverge onto that idea in whatever form, communication method, chain ticker, or whatever it is that it has to be, that people can just keep reconverging on that. And I saw that convergence happening as everyone was like, nope, this is not the direction we want to be going on. And this is an absolute attack. I think it also highlights the importance of maintaining a variety of discussion channels. Part of the reason this was thwarted, or was at least, stopped in the short term, was that the Telegram and Twitter both were very useful for people to discuss this outside of RBTC itself. And I think also that even though I have complained a little bit about it as we've been doing this show, I think having this episode, having this incident, and also this episode of the podcast to record is for people who are new to Bitcoin Cash, or maybe, you've heard about the block size. Well, I know a lot of people have joined the community in the last 2 years to understand like how these things go down. And now you've seen it in action. So now next time, hopefully if you're bought into the mission and stuff, you can kind of see your own part to play in it, right? Like we talk always on this show, I'm very conscious about, this happened back in the day, or we've learned these lessons from history, but all the time we have new people joining the community who don't necessarily relate to that in the same way until it happens with them right there to see it go down, right? And so it's all these same things, right? Like, attacks on the communication platforms, being censored, like DDoSing of nodes, like whatever, like this is, regulatory attacks, whatever it is, right? So I think for a lot of people, this should hopefully be an eye opener, and you can be ready for the next round,
I want to get a little bit ahead of myself maybe, but a shout out to, because all those other platforms, right? Like back in the day, it's really hard for people today to understand what it was like before, when there was the Bitcoin Talk forums and there was then later Reddit. That was it. There was really nowhere else to talk about Bitcoin.
There was no podcast, nothing.
Those. Yeah, if you controlled those, you controlled the spice, right? You controlled Arrakis. Because I just saw that movie recently and it was awesome. I've also read the books. But today, the shout out I want to give is that all those other places to talk, the communities on Twitter, the Telegram groups, there's lots of them. Those are not free. Those are also moderated and maintained and kept alive and kept a nice place to talk by people spending their time making those places good places to talk. So huge shout out to the people who spend time moderating those groups and making them high signal and low noise.
Yeah, and on that topic, it's also worth Cheapy, just a second. Also, and just to say, like I've said it several times, but I really want to be clear, this podcast is also a medium for that. And I'm sure a lot of people will get their version of events from this telling. And I really hope, as time goes on, that we can get more and more alternatives. I don't want to be the one sitting here doing the exact account of what happened, either. I'm in that position right now, but Ray uses Bitcoin Cash and cryptocurrency theory, and Ryan Giffen and like all the other people, casual BCH, like there will always be, a bit of a distribution of these things, and anybody else who is passionate about the community and wants to have a voice for this kind of occasion to help, in their view, protect BCH in whatever scenario it encounters, take that seriously. Start working on a media channel and building up an audience and so forth. So when this kind of thing happens, you can have your say, and people don't have to hear it from me and whatever guests I choose to have on. Although, I do try to be conscious of showing both sides, right? But I can't discuss everything. Go on, CheapLightning.
Yeah, what I was going to say, just jumping back a little bit, also for the benefit of the doubt, it is entirely possible that Roger doesn't understand that the top mod slot is the most powerful. Like, I don't know if he even knows that. Like, oh, fire duck, and I'll just add whoever's next. Like, maybe he doesn't know. Maybe he hasn't actually chosen a top mod, right? Or maybe he thinks Bitcoin is the future, is the top mod, but he doesn't know that the order is important, right? So just benefit of the doubt there. Maybe fire duck isn't intentionally the guy with the keys to the kingdom. But at the same time, Roger should also understand that he just opened the door for a potential attack vector, right? Somebody with that much power over a million subscriber sub could sell their account for a fantastically huge amount of money, right? And then slowly over time do nefarious things. Obviously, I have no idea if that's possible. We also don't know if that account has been sold previously or not, right? This is the problem with new unknown people, right? It's just a Reddit account. We don't know if the history of that account is the same person that it is today, right? We don't know that Thamos account is the same as the original one, the @Bitcoin account on Twitter. Who knows how many hands that's gone through now, right? You just don't know. So look at my post history. I said all this amazing stuff. Trust me, bro. I don't think that's good enough to put someone into a position of power. But moving on to everything else that was said, this weekend or these last few days, this drama wasn't at all like on my schedule of things that I was going to be doing and working on. But I have to say, it was a joyous experience for me. And obviously there's a lot of like negative parts to it, but overall, this is a perfect real world example of decentralization and how a decentralized community can self-organize and have its own immune system and kick in, right? So even if like Roger today said like, our BTC is now going to be a poker sub, or whatever he decides to do, fine. We lose our million sub, whatever. We have our Bitcoin Cash. We can make another forum. Most discussions happening on Telegram anyway. There's literally hundreds of Telegram channels that we can all talk on and organize ourselves if we want to. And so, yeah, if you are someone who's on the butt end of a mod decision, and I've been banned from a few groups as well. Oh well. There's literally hundreds of other places that I can talk. And maybe I don't get a talk in the big one, but it's not like I've been thrown in jail and nobody can hear me. You can talk on Twitter. You can make your own YouTube channel. Your message can still get out there. Your proof of work can rise above whatever ban you've done. For your project to be successful, you don't need me to support it, right? If your project is really going to be successful, then it will be successful under its own merit, right? Whether or not Cheapy thinks it's great doesn't matter. Whether or not you can post about it in our Bitcoin Cash doesn't matter. How many people in the world look at our Bitcoin Cash? Like 0.0001%, right? It's not going to matter. It's really not going to matter. And so, the line between moderation and censorship is a line, right? And moderator's job is to moderate. And whether you think it stops at porn, or you think it stops at spam, or you think it stops at tokens, or wherever you think it stops, it is a line, right? It's not going to be a free-for-all. Whatever you think, it's not going to be a free-for-all. There is going to be a line. And so you just have to accept that the line may not be exactly where you want it to be, but the line will be generally where the community thinks it's okay, because that's how we do it, right? We adapt, we move, we change. The sub gets too spammy, we tighten up a little bit, right? The sub gets too tight, we loosen up a little bit, right? It's what we do. A lot of people complained that the BCH channel was being too strict. We totally loosened it up, right? yeah, it was just wonderful to see how everyone banded together and was able to coordinate across all these different places. It was really fantastic and heartwarming and gave me a lot of hope, and I really felt a strong sense of community and focus and alignment and all of these things. It was just wonderful to see, and we're strong, we're resilient, right? It had no effect. We're still here. We're still, nobody rage quit.
Well, maybe.
General protocols didn't say like, "Oh, that's it, we're quitting," right? We're just going on, right? So,
all right, next slide. So I've got here community comment of the week, and I wanted to illustrate something with this. Okay, so you have here David Shares, who, again, like I said, was very on the side of free speech, and Al Thornton and maybe George Donnelly should be allowed to speak and do whatever, etc. Anybody can go to the Twitter and look at their point of view for themselves, right? But said there is a group of BCHs that want full censorship and controls over all the communication channels, just like Thamos. It's the same playbook. Very sad to see and disappointing. And then Finnish Crypto replied, "Who wants that? Which group want quote full censorship? From what I've seen and experienced, that is such hyperbole as to be completely dismissed." And I think this is kind of an example where you see, like, it's very hard to see you're in your own, cope or, situation, right? Like, I'm sad that David has felt so strongly about this issue that from his point of view, it feels like the community has betrayed all its values and we've all become Thamos and, whatever. And like we saw Renegade before, maybe also had that point of view. But that's only a couple of people. I'm not seeing that at the grand thing and at the grand sort of scale. And David unfollowed me on Twitter, so perhaps he's a bit less interested in what I have to say now. But all I will say for him is to, like, I hope you can stay part of peer-to-peer electronic cash. I hope you don't just, bail out of the BCH community. But it's, ultimately it's up to you, right? If we've all betrayed the values and blah, 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 you can go join another project and be part of that. And in that case, that's unfortunate, but if you leave, then you've self-censored yourself effectively out of having relevance in the discussion. And if you want to stay and be part of the discussion, then that's brilliant. And I really hope that, that is the case. But you have to understand that sometimes, the community decides differently to what you want. That's what a decentralized movement is. And I think it's very obvious at this point that it's not any more than a small handful of people that are on kind of your side of the issue. So I don't know, Emergent?
Yeah, I think you said it fair. I'd be interested to hear if David would like to be a moderator of what exactly did Roger say? A cryptocurrency, all things
crypto-related.
Related, I think.
Yeah, all things cryptocurrency related. I'm interested to hear if he would like to be a moderator of that. Yeah, I don't know. It's just personally, I have zero interest in that. That's like the opposite of, not the opposite of, but that's far, far away from what I want to work on, right? I'm a builder. I choose a place that I want to build, and I know where I'm going, and I want to reach that place. And that doesn't happen by saying, "Oh, well, everything's fine," and being an observer of just, an impartial observer of things. When you build, you got to choose a place to build. And cryptocurrency as a whole is a hot mess. Whereas BCH ecosystem knows what it's doing and knows where it's going, and in my opinion, still remains my opinion, is the best place and the most solid ground for achieving those goals. So yeah, I'd be really interested to hear if David is interested in moderating, right? Because, okay, forget about the past, whatever happened in the past, the existing moderators, poof, like that's all gone. And okay, so from here on, this is what the sub is. Does he want to get in there and moderate? Like, who's going to moderate that? I don't know.
Well, I think as well, it's just
know if George had.
Go on, Cheapy. I don't know if right now he's banned or not. He's not a mod anymore, but I'm not sure if he's unbanned or has been.
But if he's unbanned, if he's unbanned, then the free speech people got exactly what they wanted, right? George is allowed to talk, and now it's a complete free speech zone. And also, Shadow and Tom are not mods now, so they got exactly what they wanted. So it's wonderful.
No, be careful. Don't speak for them. I don't know exactly what they wanted. That's why I said I think it's worth asking a question, right? Is that the kind of place, or is that not what they want? Do they want a thing that's just focused on BCH, but they want it to be a more free for all? I don't know where their line is. That's another question, which would be, as a moderator, what is your line? Because if it's no line, like I said before, your sub gets shut down. Reddit will shut it down for you if you're not moderating the sub, because it just becomes a cesspool of advertising and spam. So what is your line? How do you draw that line? Like, I don't know. I'd be interested to hear more of what they think. I'd really appreciate it, like you said on the slide, stop the cap, right? Like, let's talk in specific, rational words and sentences, not like somebody wants to take over the world or just censor everything. Like, this is just not what's happening. What is their line? What would be a reason for banning somebody from the group and so forth? I'd like to hear that at some point. Maybe they'll write about it or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I just think I just saw these kind of comments from David and also sort of from Renegade here as being just very binary and hyperbolic. Like I said before, I think it's that same BTC, BCH, BSV. It's a spectrum. And on the BTC side, it's way off in one direction, and in the BSV side, it's way off in the other direction. And I love that the BCH community can be nuanced and approach things in a pragmatic, logical way under real world constraints, and not get ideologically zealous about one side or the other, which just doesn't work in the real world. And that's the exact same thing happening here in this discussion. It's, everyone getting bent. No, it's not. It's a small concession to reality in order to exist in reality, rather than being perfect ideological free speech, lack of censorship or whatever. And I don't really take a lot of play from, it's just the thin end of the wedge and you guys are just starting the next great movement. Yes, cultures can and do over time change. And if things are moving back in the wrong direction, I'll be the first to try and correct that. But I don't see that happening here, and I don't think most people do. Chet, do you have any thoughts? You haven't weighed in a while on any of this.
Yeah, so this comment and Roger's comment at the end of it all were the first things where I was like, oh, okay, I've lost respect for some of these people. Because to me, Roger made the mess inadvertently, like intentional or not, his actions to remove all the mods and instate these people, and then to say, I don't have time for this stupidity, this drama. Okay, then give up the sub. Give it to someone else. Like, if you don't have the time to do this, you shouldn't be the owner of the sub. If you just don't want to handle it anymore. At least that's my perspective. And then this, it was just so hyperbolic. And I know David's been around forever. I remember seeing his name back in the Bitcoin Cashers Discord. This was just like very ridiculous to me. If it was the case, we would have seen this in the Telegram groups where, like, as soon as you hop in, started calling people childish, we would have banned your ass. Instead, like, I was having fun with it. I was trying to get him into the free-for-all group because I wanted to cyberbully him a little bit, but he didn't join.
There you go. And that is ultimately the irony, is that some of this, we need more free speech, but then here he is unfollowing me on Twitter. So I guess I've been censored and it's all over for me. Why don't I just give up now? I haven't got a line of contact to him anymore. And George Donnelly as well, same case. Plenty of him blocking and muting and banning people and leaving Telegram groups because the free speech wasn't the free speech that he liked going on in that particular venue. So, there you have it. Right. Well, I think
I do want to add a little, just a little bit to that. Roger can do whatever he wants to do, right? I'm not like a hardcore libertarian or whatever, but using those principles, He can do whatever he wants to do. Like, that's more or less his property to some degree, right? Fine, whatever. But as an individual, you have to think, what am I going to do? And that's what I was saying before. The people who want to be mods or want to help, I don't think most of these people want to be mods. I'm sure there are power hungry people out there. I don't think these guys were those. But if you want to help, if you want to contribute, if you want to talk, you have to choose where to do it. And you have that power to do it because you actually have options now. It's not like in the past where you literally didn't have options. You do have options now. There's Session, there's Telegram, there's Discord, there's Twitter, there's Matrix, there's Slack, there's a bunch of places to talk, all kinds of channels. You have to decide as an individual what to do. Roger can do whatever he wants, but you have to understand the reality, right? That has been shown very clearly here, what it means to work under an owner of a platform. So yeah, just think about yourself. What do you want to do? That's what you have to do.
Yeah, and it's not that I'm going to be, never posting on RBTC again in protest or anything like that. But on the other hand, I am going to certainly try and be a bit more active in our Bitcoin Cash instead. And also, obviously, continue, with the show and all the, the Telegram groups and stuff like that, because it's very healthy that the discussion is decentralized. And if RBTC in the past has gone through phases where it's been great and then somewhere it was being shit and then it was a bit better again. Now it seems like maybe it might be on the decline again unless something changes, but that sort of is what it is. Okay.
And I'd like to say one more thing. I'm sorry to drag it out, but I want to address the issue of cope. So I was just saying, right? Like, you just got to decide what you're going to do yourself. That's fine. And Roger can do whatever he wants to do. But let's assume that it goes on this trajectory of open crypto, anything goes, except for some moderation line. I don't know what that'll be. Don't cope yourself either. Don't be like, well, maybe it'll be better this way. No, this is a fucking loss. It's an unmitigated loss to have a million sub Reddit turn into a free for all crypto sub. That's bad. For permissionless cash, right? That's a loss because that sub has been one of the central places, a great place for people to talk about Bitcoin Cash, permissionless money, Bitcoin, flavors of Bitcoin, whatever, like quite well aligned place. To lose that, that's a loss. So don't cope about it. It is, but what it is also. So you just got to move on and decide what to do next.
Yeah, we just got to be better about having more and varied platforms to discuss. Again, that we just are winning in an over, it's got to be a decentralized attack. We've got to be on every platform in every place with everyone discussing everywhere. So
that is the win.
That's what it takes.
That is the win. Absolutely.
All right.
Decentralization of communication is a win.
Yes. Okay, we got meme of the week because we couldn't do a whole thing without just at least one discussion. And I thought this might also play into things a little bit. So it comes from Ryan X. Charles, who we talked about on the previous episode of the show, who in his own journey through his copes and cognitive dissonance has now recently posted yesterday, "I'm building a new blockchain based on the writings of Satoshi Nakamoto." And he got lit up by BTC Sessions, who replied and said, "Bitcoin, Ryan's interpretation of Satoshi's vision, BRISV, BRISV for short. This one will most certainly be a success." And I saw this and I cracked up laughing because it's so true. Like, Ryan, he's, spent years and years in the cult of BSV, gets himself out of there, and then within a couple of days decides, you know what, I need to start my own interpretation of Satoshi's vision, which at least so far is taking fairly seriously. I saw more posts promoting it and discussing it today. I don't know what it is about. Maybe it's just some people have that certain personality, but I don't know why he can't take the L that he was wrong about that and then be like, there is two entire well-functioning, enormous Bitcoins. He could BTC, BCH, whatever is his flavor. But he's got two incredible options for him to be like, I still believe in the Bitcoin mission. Let's get this going. Let me add a little bit more momentum onto one of those. But apparently neither of those are good enough. And instead, he's going to start from scratch with himself and his network effective zero. Like, I don't know why people can't just, accept the reality that you got to be on a team. You got to win on a team. It's that simple. There's plenty of teams available, and none of them are perfect, right?
I really think I nailed it. I might be wrong, but I think I have, because I've watched him since years ago. I haven't watched him for a while now, but years ago, and he's it might be not exactly the right word, but he's an authoritarian at heart. He needs some kind of authority figure to be, the authority in his life, to set the direction and so forth. Somehow he needs that, and for him, he's decided that that's Satoshi. And so what I said was, he's not looking for Bitcoin. What he's looking to do is fill the hole in his heart. And it sounds like a joke, but it's not. To fill the hole in his heart that Craig left, because he had put Craig there because that was his. I mean, literally, he called him Jesus or something like that at some point, right? So he has this thing in his heart where he just needs to have this direction. And Craig previously filled that position, and now he's finally realized that he was a fraud. So instead of just moving on and being like, okay, what do I want? He's just replacing it with something else. Like, he's going to create his own God, basically, something like that.
Well, it's been Satoshi. That's the common thread, right? And
but now he has to create it whole cloth, right? Like, he doesn't have somebody to lean on anymore is the problem. So he has to fill it himself now.
Leaning on the writings of Satoshi. So it's still Satoshi. It's just his interpretation of what Satoshi is, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Anyway, it's sad.
The comment just nails it, though. I love this, Brisb. I can't wait. He's actually called it like Satoshi Redeemed or like something like that instead. But I guess that just goes to your point. But the message here is like, people will. That's the theme of this episode, right? Is that we had John Carvalho unwinding his way through the various copes at the start. We had some of the people who were like, no, we want a censorship-free place, but actually I still support the censorship starting up in our own subreddit. Here we've got Ryan X Charles. It's just a part of the human condition, really. So I think that's just something for everyone to be aware of. And this made me laugh. Okay, we got a message to the community. You guys know how it is. Final things, that takeaways or message, that what does everyone need to hear? Emergent, you're up first.
Yeah, so first is the thing that I already said, but just to repeat it, just a shout out to, this is very topical here, to all the people who, in good faith, spend an enormous amount of time, volunteer effort, just moderating places and keeping the house clean. I appreciate you guys so much. And having seen slightly behind the curtain, like a little bit, and I also have to moderate a few small channels that I manage. Like, it's a major job, and I really appreciate the work that you guys do. And the other is unrelated to this topic or tangentially related. CheapLightning mentioned it at the beginning, but I want to repeat it. I didn't know you were going to say that, but I want to repeat it. I really appreciate what CheapLightning is doing to reach out to all kinds of industry people, right? Like exchanges and pools and miners and explorers and so forth, to make sure that they are ready for the upgrade and that kind of thing. Nobody does that. Nobody's responsible for that. We actually do that in the background at BCHN, but that has a relatively narrow focus. So it's a huge amount of work. It's really time consuming. Anything that involves like contact management and talking with all kinds of people is a big time sink. And I really appreciate the work that you particularly are doing on that, CheapLightning. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, your message to the community.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess similarly, I think the BCH community is the most aligned we've ever been. When BCH first started, it was basically fuck BTC, and then over time, we've whittled down to the meat of peer-to-peer electronic cash for the world, right? It's no longer just about revenge at the small blockers or whatever mindset that some people may have had in the past, where we're well aligned and we're really making a lot of great progress towards that common goal that we have. And the price just hit $490, which is nice.
Holy cow.
It's because of what I'm saying right now.
We're mooning live on this show. Pump it up, baby.
You're welcome.
It was my message to the community. I want to make sure.
I take credit because I noticed it. Yeah, and similarly to what Emergent was saying there, there's a lot of volunteers and not just myself. There's an untold number of people out there who are volunteering, and that includes people who are building projects for free, right? There's all kinds of things that need to get done that people want to get done and get done with a shoestring budget or no budget whatsoever. And those are the people who are working really hard at making this thing a success. I appreciate all of you. I couldn't do it without you. Not that I'm leading this or anything. It's just really fantastic and wonderful to see, and some of the best people in the world I've ever met are involved in this project. So passionate and honest, hardworking, philosophically aligned. It's just really wonderful and beautiful, and thank you for all the hard work that you guys are doing. And for anyone who does volunteer to take time out of their day to keep these places low noise and spam free and whatever, thank you. Right, really, I'm a signal maximalist. And while other coin chats, you go into them, they have 10,000 people or 30,000 people or whatever. It's the number of real people that are actually talking is a handful. And why would anyone want to spend time in those groups, right? It's just check out blah 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 blah. It's just a waste of time. So thank you everyone who's also a signal maximalist, and keep on rocking. I love you.
All right. And my message to the community is, like I sort of touched on before, we just really need to be cognizant that the battle is forever ongoing, right? And this kind of stuff does just kind of come out of nowhere. So that's why it's important to always stay vigilant and, in general, accepting only a handful of people who now are tagged in my mind as like, okay, kind of fell for that one. The community did a good job at resisting this takeover. I think things are still a bit fragile in our BTC. Maybe Roger can have a change of heart. I don't know. Maybe he watches this episode and reconsiders things. I don't know. But if I were him, I would, put back some of the old mods. I'd get rid of Fire Duck, or at least make them at the bottom of the list with no community proof of work. And I would reevaluate how I got into this situation of this supposedly trusted person that just turned everything to shit straight away. Like, even when he said at the end there, like, it seems like every time someone on the internet gets a taste of power, they try to abuse it. It's like, yes, and you put the exact wrong person into that position, right? That didn't just happen. But I think, that could be a lesson for everybody in the community, which is, one, if you really want to have a say, it's all proof of work, right? I get to say what's on this show because I can get up every day to plan the next episode. And if you want to have your own influence on anything, could be on the way what gets implemented into the wallets, or what is said in a particular channel, or what's the best way to market BCH, or the best way to run a meetup, or the best way to have a conference, or anything. Go and do it yourself then. Show us how it's done, because only if the ball is in your own hands can you truly understand what's involved. So yeah, that's it. And we've got one final special.
Doesn't Jet get a message?
No, I already messaged him and he told me no. So.
I did. Hold on. I did just send you a message. I do have one thing to say. Just
you've changed your mind. Okay.
Yeah. Well, at first I was like, I've got nothing nice to say. I just want to call out shitheads in the space. But the nice thing that I do, or I think I want to reiterate, is there are phrases that the community has picked up for the longest time now that doesn't just apply to cryptocurrency. Don't trust, verify. And when people have a reputation in this space, it's generally built upon proof of work. It's not just a bunch of people gossiping back and forth. So I tweeted about this when I first discovered the Reddit drama. I didn't want to comment on it. I just, like, the point I want to get across is if people have a reputation at all, good or bad, you can find out why. If you can't find that information, then there's nothing to verify and you shouldn't be dealing with that person, or you should go into that situation knowing that there's nothing, there's no proof to back it up. I think just going into it with that kind of mindset will save people a lot of headache. And we can also protect ourselves from folks like Craig.
Yes. Okay, we've got a very, special announcement shout out as well to, I wanted to give a special mention on the show to Shadow of Harbinger, who posted after the, it had all kind of settled down a little bit, that he was taking a bit of a break to reassess, and had even been in physical, like, stress-induced pain. I've got a message here from Tom that sums it up. JF said on Telegram, "Sounds like this whole thing really stressed out Shadow, frowny face." And Tom replied, "It's what he loves to do. It is what Shadow found a way to match his special quirks with our community and benefit both. It got taken away without so much as a thank you. I'm pissed too about the March 22 travesty, but I don't even pretend to understand how Shadow feels." So I think, an absolute pillar of the community, has done a fantastic job for many, many years, and a true Bitcoin OG. So thank you for everything, and whatever you decide to carry on with in the future. This was certainly an unfortunate turn of events, and just another attack on P2P Cash. I think you'd probably agree. So yeah, everybody, again, like you're saying about proof of work, anybody who doesn't know, just a tremendous contributor, and take some time off, look after your health. That's first and foremost. Can't do anything if you're sick, but just thank you so much for everything you've contributed, and I'm sure all of our BTC knows that as well too. All right. Supporter appreciation. Thank you very much to our donators. Thank you to our patrons, Ricky HP and Digital Checo. Thank you to our sponsor, General Protocols. Check out bchbull.com. Thank you to the Flipstarter funders, Majamali Marcelo, Shadow of Harbinger. Look, there you go. Right again. Molecular, BTC Fork, Adam Back, Big V, CheapLightning, Emergent Reasons, Imaginary Username, Yeah Beer, and Brian Kanachi. You can hit up www.bitcoincashpodcast.com for the start guide and FAQ and all that. Listen to episode 85 if you're new to the show, and certainly if you've listened to this, then listening to episode 85 will be a fucking mind trip. That's for sure. Try out Celine Wallet at celine.cash. Shout outs for the show. Emergent, you're first up.
Oh, okay. So yeah, sorry.
I'm just
saying. Sorry, the audio cuts out for me sometimes. Yeah, no, shout outs. Shout outs. I already did the shout outs. Just go to bchbull.com and try it out. It's permissionless money, being able to do stability and speculation. Go for it.
JP.
I guess self promo. If you want to keep up to date on Bitcoin Cash news, follow the Bitcoin Cash Foundation on all of the various social medias for weekly news updates.
Amazing. Jet.
This one's kind of just a joke, but to the boys in the big hot dog chat, I was complaining yesterday. I've set up a fat pre-halvening long and was down 26% 3 hours. We're now pumping again. I'm in profits. Thank y'all. You boys have not let me down.
No. The hot dog celebrations are certainly starting to kick in, and we will see. So right now we're at $492 $83 scam cents and 9.69 billion market cap. Polygon is above us at rank 16 at 9.9 billion. So and then they've got Tron at 10.4 and Chainlink at 10.7. So if it just keeps going, keeps running a little bit, we'll be up to rank 14 pretty quickly. So you fucking love to see it. We're definitely on the comeback, and people are starting to notice. So yeah, my shout out is to everybody who saw it coming in our BDC and was in the threads, making threads, upvoting people, being like, this is bullshit, because yeah, you all did great for the most part. All right, that'll do it for the show. Thank you everybody for listening. Until next time.
So I started realizing that if you can just find strength just a little bit longer, you will have a crew of people following you along the way.
And that is another thing that no one can ever teach you. Because you're going to have to learn that on your own. You're going to have to figure out how to pull that energy out of your mind on your own. There's no book you can read that